Hello and welcome to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz. Happy week one, everybody. We've made it here to Sunday night, and it's a great day to be great. Here joining me, not as always anymore, but still pretty damn often, the one, the only, Dwain "The Rock" McFarland. Dwain, it's been a week, man. It's been a week. How are you?
Yeah, I miss you. No, it's gonna always be on Sunday nights though, so
Yes,
we're
sir.
gonna have that going. So yeah, dude, what a freaking day! Like we'll throw the Cowboys thing out. We can just set that aside for now. I still got the Cowboys shirt on. I should just take it off. But yeah, dude, freaking football is back. We have so much freaking information. This is amazing.
As always, on the Sunday night edition of the podcast, we're going through every single game that just happened. Dwain and I are even, manning up a little bit this year, recording after Sunday night football. Why not, Dwayne? I'm usually up till 3 a.m. on Sunday nights. If it's 4 a.m. this year, so be it. It's for the people. We are the pods for the people after all. So with that, man, let's just get right into it. Why the hell not? Browns 26, Panthers 24. Man, in the red zone, they always say like this is the witching hour when they get into the fourth quarter. Like once we got into the fourth quarter of those 1 p.m. games, my goodness, there were some that I think were a little bit more interested in this one, but this was back and forth. We had Baker coming down. And I thought putting, a decent enough showing out there certainly wasn't going well for him at first, but at the end of the day, man, Kareem Hunt game scoring 2 tutties, Nick Chubb went for 141, Christian McCaffrey getting back into the end zone, Robbie Anderson 102 yards and a touchdown. There was a lot of scoring going on, but I guess, Dwayne, one disappointing thing in our quest to find the late round tight end, we did not get that out of David Njoku in this one. Just one catch for 7 yards, and troublingly, how the hell you say that? Harrison Bryant, 4 targets, actually had 2 catches, now produced David Njoku. So, Dwayne, overall thoughts on the Browns' workload management and what you saw out there from both the tight end room and then also with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt?
Yeah, sure. For Njoku, the positive though, still 89% snap participation, 74% routes per dropback. So like we would love to be at 80%, like that's elite. But as long as you're over 70%, you're in a good spot. And so what we've seen in the past with Njoku has been more like, hey, 55%, 60%, and then Harrison Bryant getting involved. So Harrison Bryant was out there for 44% of the routes, and Njoku was out there for 74%. So I think you just kind of got to give him a pass this week. Would we have liked to have seen more targets? Absolutely. But there was really no one like just bogarting, all the passing game. Well, I say that. Like Donovan Peoples-Jones, like freaking at 37% of the targets for the Browns today. So that's one name to remember. He was out there for 91% of the routes. So Jacoby Brissett in his first start, with the Browns, that's the guy that he settled in on. As far as the backfield goes, yeah, it was really what we're used to. Nick Chubb was out there for 53% of the snaps. Kareem Hunt, 56%. Rushing, as usual, went to Nick Chubb, 62%, 30% to Kareem Hunt. But long down and distance, guess who? Kareem Hunt, 94%. 2-minute offense, guess who? Kareem Hunt, 71%. And if we just want to talk about routes, period, per dropback, 60% to Kareem Hunt and 33% to Nick Chubb. So really just what we're used to with these two guys. And guess what? They're both also just badass. They both made the most of their touches, and you were fine. Like you could have started both today in the same lineup, and you could have been okay. Browns' offensive line was really kicking it today. So what we're used to out of the Browns' backfield.
It was great, Dwayne, after just weeks and almost months even of just hyping up Kareem Hunt just as this, potential low-end RB2, even if, nothing happens with the trade and talks. That's exactly what we got here in week one from Kareem Hunt. Also, Christian McCaffrey, maybe not, the overall RB1 performance that we've all been yelling about, but was able to jump in from the goal line. And just really in the second half, we did see him getting back to that every down role. Overall in the game, 80% snaps. I would not be surprised if that even rises up there in future weeks. Few sheeshes in this was one of the 3 games I was able to watch at once on the 1 p.m. slate. I'm actually going to have an article, Dwayne, going up probably after Monday Night Football, all the sheeshes, all the overthrows, all the nullified touchdowns of the week. I think, tweeting out those sheesh alerts last year, I kind of hated myself by the end of it. So I'm sure that a lot of people were getting tired of it as well. But that stuff still
I
is,
love the sheesh,
useful.
man. I love the sheesh. And I just go search the sheesh. I mean, that's what I search for. Like on a Sunday, like if I want to see all the plays that were missed, I just search the sheesh with your name.
I'm still covering it. I'm just going to try to put them in one spot one time.
Okay.
So with that said, Amari Cooper, look, I know he only had 3 catches for 17 yards. It was pretty damn impressive, though. Like, he had at least 2 times where he drew a penalty and basically the guy held him and he couldn't get there. And then he put the cornerback in the dirt on one move, and Jacoby Brissett, unfortunately, couldn't get to him. And that was the story of the day. I mean, Jacoby Brissett, in the last drive of the game, he did make a couple clutch plays, but it was a really uneven performance before that, man. He missed Cooper on the potential honey hole shot down the sideline, with the safety coming over the top, and then had a even more brutal one on when Kareem Hunt got loose deep, and honestly could have been a 50-yard house call, and Jacoby just sailed it. So CMC also had a big screen call back on a hold, which that makes sense, Dwayne. Maybe he wouldn't have gotten the big game without the holding penalty, but weird thing that happened to CMC in week 1. There's a fumbled snap on the shotgun.
I saw that.
He picks it up and runs for 28 yards, not rushing yards, Dwayne, apparently fumble recovery yards. So, we're not getting the 2.8 points there. My goodness. But, we get enough of those just receptions behind the line of scrimmage, and CMC makes up for it eventually. So a couple sheeshes there. Quick final notes here. CMC, 23 straight non-injured games with at least 100 yards and or a touchdown. Madness right there. Nick Chubb forced 10 missed tackles on the ground. Great job by you, Nick Chubb. And Baker pressured on 42.4% of the dropbacks. Not easy there. So, Dwayne, anything else with this game you want to get off your chest?
No, we're good. I mean, McCaffrey, not quite, where he was like 2 years ago, where he basically never missed a snap, but still utilization is great. You already talked about the snaps, but he was in a route 74%. That is freaking elite still, right? If you're out there for 65% of the routes as a running back, you're already in elite territory. So CMC's 10% above that. He's still got 61% of the rushing attempts as well. Behind him, it was really a timeshare between Foreman and between Chuba Hubbard. 11% of the carries to Foreman, 17% to Hubbard. I kind of think, Ian, if something does happen to CMC, knock on wood, we do not want that to happen, it's probably going to be kind of a mess, right? It's not an offense that we really love. My guess is that Chuba Hubbard would get the passing down work. Deonta Foreman would probably steal some of the short down and distance, the stuff like that. But we might not be able to really depend on either in fantasy land, as you like to say, Mr. Hartitz.
Especially with the Panthers offense. Hey, they did some stuff in the fourth quarter. That was a fun time, but again, it was not a very good performance throughout the afternoon for Baker. We'll see what happens next time around when he doesn't have Myles Garrett chasing his ass down every single play. Very entertaining one here. The Steelers took down the Bengals somehow 23-20, despite the best interests of my freaking parlays, man. The Steelers find a way to rip this game out of there. I just saw Joe Goodberry, fantastic Bengals. I don't even know if he's a reporter, but just maybe the smartest guy out there about the Bengals. And he mentioned how Burrow basically threw 4 potential game-winning touchdowns, but because kickers are freaking idiots and because of just some near misses there, wasn't quite able to ultimately get the Bengals to the promised land. Should have, again, to found Jamar Chase with 1 second left in the ball game, and then McPherson gets the extra point blocked after that. I can't believe I know a kicker's name. It's only because I live in Cincinnati and I hear people barking about it. But after that, man, but I should say before that, Jamar Chase almost had this ridiculous one-handed catch for a touchdown. The other Mike Thomas got a ball that hit him in the freaking chest. Burrow, it was one of the better games you'll see a quarterback play, knowing relative that he threw 4 picks and 7 sacks. So yes, there was a ton of bad out there from Burrow, but he really did come back out there at the end and somehow give his team every single chance to win. So in terms of just kind of the usage going around, it was just a Jamar Chase show, particularly with T. Higgins suffering a concussion very early on. 16 targets for Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon with 9 because they were in hurry up mode a lot. Hayden Hurst with 8, Tyler Boyd with 7. So Dwayne, before we get to the Steelers, the thing that stuck out to me here was obviously Joe Mixon having those 7 catches, 9 targets. We know Joe Mixon can be a strong receiver. Unfortunately, Samaje Perine has usually been taking that role. As you love to tell us, though, it's a lot of different ways a running back can get those pass game opportunities. What did you see kind of behind the scenes with Joe Mixon's utilization? And is this a situation now where we can maybe start bumping him up into the upside RB1 territory as opposed to putting him, more so with guys like Nick Chubb?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to. 73% of the snaps, 59% route participation, which Joe Mixon's normally more like a 45% guy. But the difference was they gave him all the 2-minute offense. So a lot of times that still goes to Perine. The only thing Perine got was the long down and distance. And a lot of times that's whenever you're going to have to pass block, right? It's like 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12. You're probably getting blitz, probably going to be man coverage. And so if the goal to keep Mixon fresh is just to have him not have to sit out there and block and get blown up by linebackers, we could totally live with that. Because in the 2-minute offense, it's the opposite, right? Now, when you're the back on the field, typically the defense is not blitzing. They're going in a zone. They're dropping back. and the quarterback is reading, like they're just trying to not give up a big play, right? And so what does that mean? Check down to Joe Mixon, check down to Joe Mixon. So it's something I'm very interested in. Also, 93% of the team's rushing attempts, and that's something we saw last year.
Yeah.
Like he was in the 80s a lot, like for the rushing attempts. 80% of the short down and distance as well. So this is a guy that can score a lot of touchdowns. He's going to get an upgrade in the utilization this week. We'll see what happens. There were a couple of games where he got this kind of treatment last year. And I can't remember if it was injury related or what, but he kind of lost hold of it. But right now, everything looks really good for Joe Mixon in week 1.
He got banged up like week 4, week 5 last year. Because I remember there was that game where,
Yeah.
he was on the pitch count and then he found a way to score a touchdown anyway. So we were all like, damn it, why the hell did we sit you? But okay, hopefully he can hold on to it more this time around. Final few notes with the Bengals here. Did mention that T. Higgins concussion. And Tyler Boyd, man, this is now, if we include this game, he's had 13 games with Joe Burrow and without one of Jamar Chase or T. Higgins. Obviously, a lot of that includes Joe Burrow's rookie season when Chase wasn't there yet. But regardless, in those 13 games, Tyler Boyd averages 6.6 catches, 69 yards, 0.4 touchdowns on 8.5 targets. If you extrapolate that to 17 games, Dwain, 112 catches, 1,173 yards, 6.5 scores on 145 targets. That's why Boyd was one of these sleepers for us in those later rounds, because we've known that he's been the back-to-back PPR wide receiver 36 when these guys are healthy. And now, Dwain, if T. Higgins is out, I'm not saying he's for sure going to be a top 24 receiver, but top 30, top 32, man, particularly with a game coming up against that Cowboys secondary that I don't think we're going to be very afraid of. All of a sudden, Boyd's someone that I think people are going to be very happy about having on that bench.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be, I would say he's going to be in that wide receiver 3 mix, right?
Yeah.
If we've got Higgins out, I agree. His yards per route run, we're not great, 0.63, but still, if you're going to be the number 2 receiver, which is what we would slate him to be, right, on the Bengals, we're going to like it. You got a good quarterback. We did see the Bengals throw a lot today, but they were trailing like the whole time, because of all the pickoffs. So we still don't have a good handle on, will the Bengals be more like what we saw 2 years ago before Joe Burrow got hurt? Or are they going to be more like what we saw early last year, right? Where they tried to be much more of a, if we were picking the Madden playbook, right? Pass balanced, right? Or balance would be what it was. The year before it was pass heavy. Like today, pass heavy. But at the same time, they were trailing. So it'll be interesting. If they are going to throw it and air it out more, though, like that helps all of these receivers.
Final few notes here with Cincy. Jamar Chase, 10 catches, 129 yards, and a touchdown. And it really could have been so much more. He had a chance earlier in the game for an end zone snag. Would have been tough, just couldn't get the 2 feet down. It bounced out at the end. He also dropped a slant where the cornerback fell down, and he was probably going to score. But again, he dropped the ball. Also, seemingly did have a touchdown. Like you could see the ball was past the plane, and the Bengals, instead of challenging it, ran up to the line and ran a play and ended up not being a touchdown. And then finally, the aforementioned one-handed snag, and his foot was out of bounds by just a centimeter. If you're a wide receiver and you're not wearing white cleats, you don't care about winning, Dwain, because they have these black cleats out there, and it's just so obvious to tell. If you have the white cleats, man, I feel like you give yourself an extra 6 inches at least, and that's just out there on the football field. So looking elsewhere, though, again, Chase, 35 touchdowns in his last 36 games going back to college, so he's going to be just fine. Final note here, Dwain, did you see enough out of my guy, Hayden Hurst, to start being a little nicer to the Hurst family in general?
Oh, no. Hey, Hurst is good. I think it's positive, right? Whenever we're not dealing with T. Higgins plus Tyler Boyd plus, Jamar Chase, right? So now he can be the third option. He was out there for 79% of the routes, right? So he was almost at the 80% number that we love, but still a lot of target competition, 14% target share, which was actually tied with Tyler Boyd, right? We had 31% of the targets go to Jamar Chase just because he's a complete beast. I'm good. I'm good with Hurst. He gets a slight bump in any games that we're without one of the other weapons.
Pittsburgh Steelers now. Probably should have given them the credit first, but I just, my mind hasn't accepted that Pittsburgh won this game. It was just wild watching it the entire time. Credit to Minkah Fitzpatrick, getting the pick 6, even blocking the extra point. So just an incredible performance by him. But with Pittsburgh, very disappointing game for Najee Harris, fantasy managers, because not only was he largely ineffective out there, but we had some of the target issues come to fruition. I mean, he ended up re-injuring his foot, it seems like, late in the fourth quarter, but to only see 2 targets in the meantime, just kind of reinforces some of those concerns we had about what exactly his usage was going to be like this season. 10 carries for Najee Harris, 6 carries for Chase Claypool, Dwayne, out of an entire summer filled with who's going to be this year's Deebo Samuel. I'm not sure one person ever said Chase Claypool, but come on down, Chase. Apparently got that role just for now. For the record, they were consistently just like reverses and fly sweeps. I have no idea why they kept going back to the well that often. I mean, he averaged 6 yards per carry on it, so fair play, I guess, but maybe get the ball or Pickens like more than one time in the entire game. I don't know, Dwayne. I'm just a fantasy analyst chilling in my mom's basement, so I'm not going to try to tell Matt Canada what to do that much. But the big story, I guess, on offense, because with Najee Harris, we'll see what happens with the foot. Jalen Warren is going to be on the cover of a lot of these waiver wires. Right now, Mike Girardi says it's not considered a big deal. Jordan Schultz reports that he should be fine. So we'll see. Know a lot more about it Monday. You can catch the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast talking waivers on Tuesday. But Deontay Johnson, Dwayne, to see him come out, 12 targets, 7 catches, 55 yards, should have had another 30 because holy shit, the dude went up one-handed and came down, was almost, did they give him the catch? I think they did give him the catch, actually. It was initially ruled not a catch, and then they reviewed it. So that was incredible. Matt Harmon was shouting him out, saying that, how dare some people, including me a little bit, doubted the greatness that is Deontay Johnson. I'll just say this, though, Dwayne. Now that we have the targets pretty much, it's still a 1-game sample size. I get it, but we now have a 1-game sample size of Deontay Johnson still being a target hog monster, even without Ben Roethlisberger under center. Does that still really make you want to boom him up, from outside the low end wide receiver 2 circuit? Because let's face it, the Steelers offense did look about as bad as advertised otherwise.
Well, I think it's tough to not. I mean, at 30% target share, yeah. And I mean, you were the guy that had always loved, Deontay, and then you kind of cooled on him this offseason, but I think this just shows you it doesn't matter. It's with Mitch Trubisky, with Ben Roethlisberger. He's the best receiver on the team. And I mean, he's just a really good player. So, I mean, it's going to be hard to get out of wide receiver 2 territory because we have questions about, the quarterback. But at the same time, he's still going to have plenty of wide receiver 1 games. And I think his floor, he's going to give you these wide receiver 3 type games. So I feel really good about Deontay Johnson. A couple of other quick notes. You did mention Chase Claypool. He was involved on the ground like 2 years ago, right? As a rookie, he scored some rushing touchdowns and stuff, but 30% of the team's rushing attempts went to Chase Claypool today, which was definitely an interesting twist. You did mention George Pickens. So here's the positive on him. Still out there for 91% of the routes. Yeah, he only came up with a 9% target share. But that's still really good, man. He's out there plenty. They're using the 3 wide receivers all game. This is a game where they actually led. They were leading. And they were getting all of these pickoffs. I mean, it was never out of hand at any moment, and they continued to throw the ball. So that was what was really the most impressive thing to me about the Steelers' offense today, was the fact that they didn't just kind of go into a shell and run the ball. My big concern was that we could see a real decrease in the passing volume. I'm looking right now, Mitch Trubisky, he dropped back to pass. This is including penalties on this because I was looking at PFF grades for this, but 43 times. So I don't know how many of those went away for penalties, but still, 43 is really good. So that's the most encouraging thing to me. So if you can be out there for 90% of the routes on a team that could throw the ball 40 times a game, because I thought that might drop to like 30. Well, now you got TJ Watt injury. I mean, how good is this defense going to be able to, how good can they, continue to be without him? I mean, he's obviously a major factor. So yeah, that's the biggest thing for me with the Steelers. We'll have to keep an eye on the Najee thing, but you mentioned Jalen Warren. Like, he definitely was the next man up.
Dwayne did mention it. TJ Watt with that torn pec. Hate to see it. Was already out there making a bunch of plays, as he does seemingly every week that he puts on a pair of shoulder pads. But yeah, Chase Claypool did have 24 rush attempts his first 2 seasons. Now he's on pace for 24 rush attempts in the first 4 weeks of this year. So not exactly expecting that to keep up, but obviously, we said with Deebo, Dwayne, rush attempts in place of targets, no, bad. Rush attempts as an extra side on, as a little dessert after dinner, that is absolutely great. New Orleans Saints.
Hey, whoa. Is that you're not going to talk about Zach Gentry? What's up?
His 40% route rate? I didn't want to embarrass you.
Hey, well, we do have to talk about Freiermuth. That's why I actually brought it up. 77% route participation for Freiermuth. That's almost 80% we want. 27% target share for Pat Freiermuth. So that was second on the team behind Deontay Johnson. I have a feeling that behind Deontay, Ian, this could be a frustrating situation from week to week. Like, is it going to be Claypool? Is it going to be Pickens? But at the end of the day, all we can do is give credit to Freiermuth. He's a guy that kind of flashed last year a little bit. Like we talked about him as being, not someone with the upside of being one of those elite guys, but maybe the next step could be being like a Zach Ertz, right? Maybe being a Dalton Schultz type. He definitely showed that today. So I thought Pat Freiermuth did a really nice job. 2.42 yards per route run as well. So good opening weekend for the second-year tight end.
Pat Freiermuth, or as he's also known, Cole Kmet, but actually good at football. New Orleans Saints took down the Atlanta Falcons 27-26. This was another witching hour masterpiece. Saints had a 17-3 run in the fourth quarter. Michael Thomas beating AJ Terrell not once but twice for touchdowns after having little to nothing going on in the first half of the game, playing through the pain of that hamstring injury. Finished with 57 yards and those pair of touchdowns. Shout out Jarvis Landry, 7 catches, 114 yards himself. Chris Olave, only 3 targets. Did catch all of them and added on a 2-point conversion. Looked awfully smooth doing so, as I'm obligated to say anytime you mention Chris Olave. So yeah, man, really was Michael Thomas and Jarvis leading the way. Troubling usage for Alvin Kamara, Dwayne. Just 9 carries, only had 4 targets out there. Still seeing Mark Ingram. We had Taysom Hill come in his drive and do awesome things, but it just annoys us because it's Taysom Hill and none of us have started him. But obviously I understand Taysom Hill, very good at football when given the opportunity. But quickly with Kamara, because we know Michael Thomas, when he's out there and he's getting his, that he's capable of doing this. And it was nice to see Landry and Olave. But I would just say, you see the Saints put up 27 points. You'd probably be expecting Alvin Kamara to have, I don't know, man, at least 50 total yards. Wasn't the case today.
Yeah, I mean, he was at 62% of the snaps, which is that's better than what he used to be, right? Until like the last couple of years. So we used to be able to get, 20, 25 points a game out of Alvin Kamara, even when he was out there for 40% of the snaps. But 62% today is still solid. 53% of the rushing attempts, still good, like for him. The biggest thing that I noticed, Ian, is only a 45% route participation. This is a guy that we're used to seeing around 65% and being highly effective on it. We talked about him in the preseason. Would Jameis continue to target him? We didn't see him do it as much last year as to what we were used to with Drew Brees. He did get a 13% target share, which wasn't bad. His targets per route run, 21%. So I mean, when he was out there, the target rate wasn't bad. But like for Kamara, we really want that 18 to 20%. So it's only week 1. I don't want to overreact, but at the end of the day, that 45% number is definitely, what caught my eye the most. Real quick on Michael Thomas, I do have to say, like gutting it through 81% route participation, despite, fighting through the hamstring stuff. But man, 27% target share in your first game back. Like that's just like, and Jarvis Landry too, 27% target share. That's the other thing. So when you look at Jarvis Landry, what was interesting, like today, his average depth of target was 15. Like we expected him to work more underneath. Like Jameis is just pushing everything down the field. So there's still room right now underneath for Kamara to kind of be the guy to operate. Again, it's only 1 week. ADOTs in a 1 week sample can be really wacky, right? We really want to look at them over, over a period of time. But it was really nice to see that. And Olave was out there plenty. So I'll leave it at that. 83% route participation for him. It's really those 3 guys were kind of the main ones rotating.
Michael Thomas also had 2 drops out there, so it could have been an even bigger performance for him. Jameis did get banged up, had to go into medical tent, but did come back and went over and ate that W. I just think the NFL is more fun when Jameis is a starting quarterback. I'm not going to apologize for, being a fanboy with that dude sometimes. All right, with the Falcons, though, Dwayne, the real main event here, our guy, Cordero Patterson, 22 carries, 120 yards, and a tutty, chipped in another 16 receiving yards. Now, he did have Damian Williams leave the game very early with a rib injury, and Williams actually was getting some pretty good run, even ahead of CPAT for stretches before, but we're talking about like a 10-snap sample here. I think we all know that CPAT is going to be the featured running back when he's out there. And now, Dwayne, going back to the first half of last year to now, so the first, until he sprained his ankle against the Cowboys, he's been the RB36, the RB4, 19, 1, 16, 19, 11, 7, and hell, man, with 136 yards and a touchdown today, I have a hard time believing he's going to be outside that top 8, top 10 again. So Cordero Patterson, the shining bright spot, because we got Kyle Pitts, freaking 19 yards on just 2 catches, had the 7 targets, which was good. Drake London had a decent debut with 74 yards, but really in Atlanta, unless you were just somehow starting Marcus Mariota and you got to live with his 72 rushing yards and a score, CPAT was the offense. And it could be this way every single week, Dwayne. The guy's that freaking good. Why wouldn't you give him the ball every play? I would have been doing this 10 years ago.
Yeah, man. 65% snap share, 54% of the routes. 54% route participation, 67% of the team's rushing attempts. That's the number that I think would have definitely been lower, right, if Damian Williams stayed in the game. But the other ways that they were getting Patterson involved, like, were still going to happen. And again, like, once you watch the two players, like Damian Williams, and it was short, it was a small sample, just wasn't doing much. And as soon as you put CPAT on the field, it's just like it's a whole different, it's just a different game, like, with him out there. So I don't see how they can keep him off the field. But he had 60% of the long down and distance. But Avery Williams, just a name to keep an eye on. I don't know how bad Damian Williams' injury is. He's a guy I didn't look up before the show, so I have to keep an eye on that. But Avery Williams, was the guy that came in and pretty much took the role that Damian Williams left behind. So a name to keep in mind. Look, we really don't want early down bangers, right, on teams that are going to probably be trailing plenty. And we also don't know, like, Tyler Algier was inactive today, right? Yeah. They could easily make him the guy that they want to have active next week. But I think, to your point, the big thing is definitely Patterson. Real quick on Kyle Pitts. Folks, calm down. He's still out there 84% of the snaps, 72% of the routes. He did block a little bit. Yes, he didn't get to the 80%, but I'm really not worried about it. He's going to be there. Most of his routes came from the slot and in line. He was not lining up wide, so he wasn't facing off against all the cornerbacks. I think it's only a matter of time for Kyle Pitts. I think he's going to be fine. And still 22% target share, right? It's still not bad. It just didn't work out today. 32% of the team's air yards. That was still first on the team, so 30% to Drake London was second. London played through a knee injury, and he was out there for 82% of the routes. So I would guess London will be more like in the 90% range once he's fully healthy.
That was the big takeaway I had here with Pitts. When I ran the numbers, it was in the middle of Sunday Night Football, so I think I saw Brashad Perryman was actually getting up there in the unrealized air yards leaderboard. But when I pulled it, it was Brandon Cooks, number one, with the largest difference between their air yards and their receiving yards. This is basically the basis of Josh Hermsmeyer, PFF's finest buy low model, and we'll maybe get him on the pod here soon. At a minimum, we'll be talking about all of his fantastic work. But number two on the week, pre-Sunday Night Football, was Kyle Pitts with 74 unrealized air yards. So haven't gotten eyes on the game just yet to tell you, how many of those were regular air yards, how many of those were prayer yards. But either way, yeah, don't panic on Kyle Pitts, people. It's going to take at least a few more weeks before we get to that point. I think that's about it for this one, Dwain. Any final words?
No, I think that's it. Kyle Pitts, I would still consider, like, he's in your top three. And if you have a manager in your league that is panicking about Kyle Pitts, like, you just kind of go gentle knock on the door, Girl Scout style, and see what you can get done.
Gentle. Let's not try to intimidate him here. We're trying to get a deal done. Okay. Chicago Bears 19, San Francisco 49ers 10. Oh my God. I sent out a freaking tweet last week making fun of the Bears with this stupid little peewee team, and the amount of Chicago wins, I held on to that tweet and just wanted to throw it in my face. Good for you guys. I was wrong. I'm an idiot. You guys are, we go through the whole Happy Gilmore thing. You guys are good looking. I'm not. You guys are athletic. I'm just, stiff as a board over here. Like, it's just bad call by me. Fair play to Justin Fields and the entire city of Chicago. That was a great win. And, you can say, oh, they just won because of the rain and all that. Same conditions the 49ers had to deal with, and the Bears came out with the W. So certainly wasn't easy. Looked like early on it could just be a San Francisco 49ers being able to run the football and still their will, but they lost Elijah Mitchell to a knee injury fairly early on, and just the offense couldn't really get going, man. Now playing in a monsoon, yes, that's a good reason for it, but Tyler Kroft was wide open for a 30-yard touchdown. Trey Lance couldn't hit him, and generally it was just an erratic performance from Lance. So saw a couple good strikes here or there. Same thing with Justin Fields. I mean, when he rolled out to his left and looked back right, man, it was the ultimate just no, yes, okay, great type of play out there. Ended up getting that long touchdown to Dante Pettis, and then had a better throw, I think, overall to Equanimeous St. Brown, who scored within seconds of his brother Amon-Ra. That was like one of the best parts of the afternoon. So, Dwain, in terms of like passing performance, because we're still trying to get a read on both these guys, like, I'm willing to kind of throw this game out of the picture because, my God, like, I've almost never seen a football game like this look like that on my television. Like, I was seeing new colors on the field I wasn't used to seeing because of all the water out there. So, focusing less on the quarterback's passing performance and more on the usage we were seeing in the offense. The first big takeaway in San Francisco is the Deebo Samuel running back experience is going absolutely nowhere.
It's going absolutely nowhere. You're right. Yeah.
I mean, it's still here.
Yeah, I know. You kind of confused me for a second. And I was like, okay, like, whatever. Ian looked at the wrong data. Yeah. 22%, of the rushing attempts to Deebo. And then the quarterbacks, both very involved, 28% of the rushing attempts to Trey Lance, and then Justin Fields 21%. So we were kind of concerned, like, hey, would this new coaching? Now, they did not run the ball that much, right? Because the Bears were trailing much of that game until the end. And so they didn't really have a lot of plays on the ground, but Fields was very involved with them, and they were getting in the design look. So that's really good for both of those. We expected it for Lance. We thought it would probably happen for Justin Fields, but we still had a question, right? New coaching staff coming in. The last coaching staff didn't do it. We don't know how Justin Fields feels about it, but a fifth of the time when the Bears were running the ball today, it was Justin Fields. So I think that's a real positive for both of those guys. Like you mentioned, very bad conditions. Neither one of them completed even 50% of their passes, but they can only go up from here. So that's the positive, around Trey Lance and Justin Fields, very involved on the ground. Brandon Ayuk, man, for the 49ers, out there for 100% of the routes. 8% target share, but it's just kind of tough, man, when you got Deebo Samuel with a 27%. And today it was Jawan Jennings working from the slot with the 49ers in a game script that, really forced them to throw the ball more as well. I say throw the ball more. They didn't throw it a lot, but 23% target share to Jawan Jennings. He was out there 78%, but it's still clearly Ayuk, Deebo. We did not have Kittle today. So that's that. I'll hand it back to you, and I'll hit some of these Bears here in a minute. I don't know how much longer you want me to go on these guys.
Last point on the 49ers, Trey Lance, bad. I get it. 13 rush attempts, though, Dwain. And now we take those, 3 starts in the extended appearance where he had a bunch of rush attempts, too. He's averaging 11 rush attempts per game. That extrapolates 17 games out to 187 rush attempts over the course of an entire season. Lamar Jackson is the only quarterback in NFL history to ever even clear 150 rush attempts in a season. So, hey, I know Jimmy G is on the roster. Trey Lance needs to improve. I'm not backing down after 1 week. I think Trey Lance is still very much set up to be a very good to great fantasy football quarterback, even if he can only be a mediocre real-life guy in the year 2022. Real quick, though.
Besides Deebo, it was all Jeff Wilson. So that's
exactly.
The other note. Yeah, good. So if that's where you're going, they did not. It was just Deebo and Jeff Wilson once Elijah Mitchell left the game. Now, you didn't have TDP active. They actually had Mason active today, but he did not see the field on offense.
So I would expect TDP to be active in the future if Mitchell is going to miss time, but Jeff Wilson, Dwain, is going to be the guy on the cover of every waiver wire. It's almost like I might have actually called him the streamer of next week earlier this week on the podcast and advised everyone to go pick him up because something like this could happen. / we just kind of thought that Wilson would be the RB2 based on that sweet preseason usage. So Wilson was bad out there. I'm not trying to sit here and victory lap something that hasn't even happened yet, but it does seem like Jeff Wilson is going to be out there on the cover of the waiver wires. And at least compared to some of the other guys I think we're going to get to, Dwain, his utilization, I certainly feel better moving forward. Less, I don't think this is not a situation where it was like a fluky productive performance. This is something where we're looking ahead to the utilization that should really be close to an RB1, if not an RB2, if not an RB1. So
yeah. And what's interesting with Wilson, like he was already going to be the passing down guy. And with Elijah Mitchell out, like he kept all of that besides what Deebo took, right? And so like it's an opportunity where he could actually have a role. We'll see. Look, it's the 49ers, man. They'll probably do something stupid next week that'll make us all be like, oh my God, why did we go after Jeff Wilson? It should have been Tyrion Davis-Price, or it should have been Mason. Like who knows what will ultimately happen. But with Jeff Wilson, just know that he was already the passing down back. So if he does picks up some of the base down work, he potentially has a role that's actually larger than what we were planning on for Elijah Mitchell. Not as he's not as explosive as Elijah Mitchell. So he's not going to give you as many of the big plays, but still opportunity is what really matters. And he could actually carve out a decent role. So we'll have to see.
Only 17 pass attempts for Fields, so not going to hold the production against any of his pass catchers too much in this one. With that said, Cole Kmet was losing a good amount of work to Ryan Griffin. Dwain, did you see enough of a rotation here with the Bears tight ends to kind of reinforce what we were pretty much saying throughout the preseason, that Kmet just really wasn't someone we were willing to buy at a premium in that late round tight end game?
Yeah, and you were lower on Kmet than me, and like 71% route participation today. Like, so it's fine. Like that can still be a low end tight end 1, right? That can be a high end tight end 2. But I don't know if that's like his baseline. Is he going to have spikes past that? Is he going to have weeks where he's lower than that? Is that just where he's going to be? It's only one data point so far. But to your point, Ryan Griffin was out there a decent amount, 42% route participation for him. And he actually had a 12% target share, where Cole Kmet only had a 6% target share. So I think it's too early to bail on Cole Kmet. Like if you're a Cole Kmet truther, this should not be enough to make you bail. If you were just real tepid already on Cole Kmet, and you weren't really sure you liked him anyway, then you're probably like, okay, one more week and I'm bailing, if this doesn't work out. But we'll talk about some other tight ends as we go.
Final note here in this one, Chicago Bears backfield, David Montgomery. Yeah, he led the way in snaps. He led the way in rushes. He even led the way in targets out there. Khalil Herbert, though, did continue to look like the far better player. Herbert, 5 yards per carry. David Montgomery, just 1.5 yards per carry. Herbert even managed to get the goal line touchdown. So, Dwayne, like Montgomery is still clearly the featured back here, but it does seem lesser so than last year. I mean, looking at the final numbers, Montgomery's 66% snap rate. It wasn't uncommon at all last year to see him, well over that 80% mark. So at a minimum, Montgomery, I feel like kind of where he was being ranked, RB20, RB21 spot, that's probably about where he should be in the weekly rankings. Probably not someone that we're actually going to be booming up as much as maybe would have thought if he was going to continue to have last year's usage.
Yeah, I mean, if he all of a sudden started playing better, like it would be different. Like his utilization is actually what an RB1 looks like, but he has just not really been that great. Like 66% of the snaps, 67% route participation, that's elite. 53% of the rushing attempts, that's good, not great. Definitely not elite, but 100% of the short down and distance, right? So he's going to have opportunity to score touchdowns if the Bears can get there. Long down and distance, 77%, and 2-minute offense, 80%. So like it's really mostly Montgomery, a little bit, of Khalil Herbert. To your point, it's a little less than what we saw last year, but that's still a really strong profile. Now, to your point, Khalil Herbert did look better than he did. So it's something where Herbert could continue to chip away at that. But what we saw from Herbert in the preseason in the passing game, he was really bad in pass pro. And that's something David Montgomery is really good at. So I would expect Montgomery to at least keep like the 2-minute offense, long down and distance. Maybe you see Herbert chip away at some of that early down utilization. But I think if you drafted Montgomery and you were getting him, when he was falling, we weren't an advocate of taking him. We were like passing him in these football guys drafts. But seeing this week, I feel decent about him as being your RB2 probably for the rest of the way. We'll have to keep an eye on it. But I think in more weeks than not, you're going to be okay living with him as your RB2. You're not going to be like running around going, I got David Montgomery. Like it's not going to be like that. But you're going to be like, okay, I got David Montgomery. Like it's, it could be worse, if you have really good receivers, you'll be okay.
He's going to be, a low end RB2, and we're just going to live with it from that point. So Eagles 38, Detroit Lions 35. Lions got spicy there at the end, 14 unanswered points in the fourth quarter, but the Eagles were able to put it away when it mattered. So did have just one small sheesh in this one. Hurts almost had his second rushing touchdown, got tackled at the half-yard line. So almost was a much bigger day for him. But man, you get those 90 rushing yards and a score on the ground. What else really matters at that point? But no passing touchdowns because Hurts, Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott, and yes, for the first time in 632 days, Miles Sanders finally found himself back into the end zone. Really great game from Sanders, 13 carries, 96 yards, and that score chipped in their 9 receiving yards to get over the century mark. But Dwayne, the real star of the day, A.J. Brown, wide receiver 1 season, as always, 10 catches, 155 yards on 13 targets, absolutely dominant out there. And, we talked about it in the offseason. Like, could this be a situation where this is the year that AJ Brown just goes ballistic and plays like the top 3, top 5 wide receiver talent that we know he is? Certainly a good start to the year on that. So, looking at AJB, 13 targets again. He had 10 more targets in just 6 of 48 career games with the Titans. So not a given that they're going to keep this up, throughout the entire season. I'm pretty sure Devontae Smith will catch a pass at some point in the year 2022. Dallas Goedert only had 4 targets in this one. Kenneth Gainwell only had 4 targets in this one. But man, Dwayne, seeing Hurts go out there and be a good, not great passer. He was still 18 for 32, but like a dime down the right sideline to AJB. He just had 155 yards in their first game together. Like AJ Brown, someone that we had, a little bit more in that wide receiver 1 borderline. Are you ready to get him right back up there, kind of in the Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill group? Because for the first time of AJB's career, he actually might not be working at a target deficiency like he had to in Tennessee.
Right. Well, I think the big thing here, if we look at the Eagles, they were not run heavy today. They were actually dropping back and throwing the ball. Remember, we didn't know for sure what this team was going to be. For the first 4 games last year, they were throwing the ball all the time. Then they shifted over into this mode where they turn into one of the most run-heavy teams in the league. So we figured they're probably somewhere in between that, but they could be towards one extreme more than the other. Either way, we weren't for sure. So I think that's the most positive thing that came out of the game for all of the pass catchers today for the Eagles was the fact that really the Eagles were still more in that pass-first mode. We did see them, even when leading, continuing to throw the ball more than running the ball. So I think that's the big thing to hang your hat on from this game. Like you mentioned with Brown, man, 95% route participation. So out there all the time, 44% target share, 71% of the team's air yards. And look, AJB, we talked about him all off season. Like his talent profile itself grades like a top 5 player. Like everything you want to look at, his receiving grade, his yards per route run, his ability to demand targets, targets per route run, like all of those things have really basically, and even like, obviously looking at his fantasy points, we talked about it. If you get rid of the games where he left the game, with injury, and you only look at healthy games, like he's a guy that's been between 18 and 19 fantasy points per game. And so we knew this was possible. So yeah, I think you have to be excited. I think you keep him right there on that low end wide receiver 1. Like he's probably, to your point, they're going to have games where these other guys get involved, but it's great, to your point, to see them really click, out of the gate real quick. On everybody else is pretty much the same. People were involved, but on the backs, it is a 3-way committee still. It's Miles Sanders in the lead, 51% of the snaps, Kenneth Gainwell, 31% of the snaps, and Boston Scott out there for 20%. Boston Scott did still a touchdown, in the game. You're also going to have to deal with Jalen Hurts. So Miles Sanders is a guy that if you can move him, if someone happens to be excited about him and they're just saying, 13 carries, 96 yards and a touchdown, I would absolutely move Miles Sanders because he's in the same situation he was in last year. He's not getting the 2-minute offense. He didn't get 13%. He's not getting the long down and distance, 15%. That all went to Gainwell. He did get half of the short down and distance work where Boston Scott poached like the other 38%. And then, of course, Jalen Hurts was also involved in those plays too. So if you can move Sanders, I don't think this backfield's changing. It's going to continue to be 3 dudes. That's just the way it is. And so this will probably be one of Miles Sanders' better games of the season if you can move him.
And hey, he averaged 7.4 yards per carry in this one. He averaged 5.5 yards per carry last year. The Eagles very much look like probably one of the league's better offenses out there. Big, badass offensive line. Sanders could find a way to just outperform his volume, but we're not trying to live on exceptions here. We're trying to follow the guys with the most overall volume, and Sanders is going to have his back against the wall.
And we're not saying give him away, right? Don't give him away. But if someone now looks at him and thinks that Miles Sanders is a mid-range, high-end RB2, they're probably wrong, right? So you want to take them up on that offer. If you're still thinking of Miles Sanders as a high-end RB3, you shouldn't sell him for less than that, right? He's still a high-end RB3, but if someone's willing to pay you a high-end RB2 price tag, then that's what you're trying to get.
On the Lions side of things, DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams, pretty excellent days. Second straight week 1. They've managed to do that. Swift led the way, 65% snaps, 15 carries, 144 yards, and a touchdown. Looked explosive out there, man. 50-yard rush. And someone that we've had questions about, in terms of just how good could he be as a rusher? Because a lot of his underlying metrics, we've kind of ignored them, tried to put like a grain of salt with them because they say that he's one of the bottom 5-10 rushers in the league. And you watch DeAndre Swift play football and you know that he's not one of those people, particularly in the passing game. So it was good to see Swift continue to really put together more good film on the ground. And in his defense, last year before he got injured, he was starting to come on really strong. That Steelers game, and I think it might have been the Rams. He had some real nice stuff too. But DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams, Dwain, I think it was what we expected. And luckily for Jamal Williams' sake, being a part of a little bit better Detroit Lions offense this year, he found his way into the end zone 2 times. Still not going to be someone that we're absolutely lining up to play on a week-by-week basis. But hey, man, Jamal Williams getting 12 touches in this one. DeAndre Swift obviously doing his thing, still managing to catch 3 passes and be that explosive player in the run game. These are 2 guys that I think you should be pretty happy to have on your fantasy team.
Yeah, absolutely. And Williams is going to be a tough guy to get in your lineup as a starter. But if you're in a situation once we get to the bye weeks, right, or you play in a deep league, or you got multiple flex spots, then a guy like Jamal Williams can really come in handy. And look, if something happens with Swift, again, don't want that to happen. But Williams has shown us that he's got a 3-down profile. Like he's shown that before with Aaron Rodgers. He's not explosive like DeAndre Swift is, but he can do everything that the team is going to ask him to do. But yeah, Swift, man, 67% of this isn't close. It's not close to being a 50-50. That was the one concern that we had, is that what if it turns out to be more of a 55-45 or a 50-50 this year? It wasn't. 67% of the snaps to DeAndre Swift, 33% to Jamal Williams. It is nice. They're the only 2 backs involved. We don't have a third back here. 66% route participation. Again, elite. That is like at the level that we've seen Kamara have like his best seasons. 57% of the rushing attempts for him versus 39% for Jamal Williams. 100% of the long down and distance work. They did not use the 2-minute offense today, so I can't tell you anything about that. But Jamal Williams did get the 2 touchdowns, but they came after some long plays. So I don't know how much of that counts, because at the end of the day, on all of the short down and distance plays for the game, DeAndre Swift still handles 67% and 33% to Jamal Williams. So typically, whoever is handling the short down and distance work is also who's going to handle the work inside the 5. So my guess is this is really just kind of a 65-35 across the board, right? Besides I think all the 2-minute offense will go to DeAndre Swift, but I think it's pretty much 65-35 across the board with these two.
Jamal got more of the goal line stuff, but it's one of those situations where Swift, they're not refusing to give Swift the ball at the goal line. I think it might just kind of added up like that with Jamal being out there for it. So either way, good to have both those guys. And as we know, Jamal Williams does have, that extra handcuff potential should Swift go down. Why? We were hyping him up pretty much for the past 7 months. Love to see that come to fruition in week 1. Now, Dwain, I'm handling more production duties with this podcast here. I kind of messed up the intro earlier, so my bad about that, everyone. But going forward, I got to get a special sound effect for our guy, Amon-Ra St. Brown, the sun god himself. Some sort of like levitating god-like sound, because I don't know how else to describe the guy at this point. Last 7 games, he's had 10 catches, 8, 8, 9, 8, 8, 8. Like, who does this, man? Is this... We keep saying he can't be Cooper Kupp, but Cooper Kupp's the only other guy I see catching 8 passes this much again. Targets 12, 12, 11, 11, 11, 10, 12. The guy's been a wide receiver 1 in 6 of the last 7 games, assuming he gets there at the end of this one. By the end of Sunday afternoon, Amon-Ra was at 8 catches, 64 yards, and a touchdown. Thank God he didn't crash my week 1 helicopter. I know I said 2 and over 100 yards, but if I give you 20 PPR points, we're going to freaking call that a W, everyone. The bar has been lowered, and, we've seen darker days there. So we're going to take the dub with Amon-Ra St. Brown. And, Dwain, I had him ranked, I want to say like wide receiver 17 or 18 last week, like high enough like to get him in every freaking lineup possible. But how many more times do we have to see this before we're just like, okay, the guy's a wide receiver 1 every week. Maybe it's about time we rank him as a damn wide receiver 1.
Yeah, you got to rank him at this point as at least a mid-range wide receiver 2. You get another week like this, you're just going to have to go wide receiver 1. But we've talked about, I don't know, there's probably no one we've talked about more than Amon-Ra this offseason. The 80.0 PFF rookie receiving grade. We've talked about the list that associates with everything we talk about with Amon-Ra St. Brown checks every box. But you still have people. I even had him on today on Twitter. Oh man, it's still because somebody was hurt last year. And I'm like, okay, guys, like what else you want the guy to do? Like everybody's healthy right now. 32% target share. 7 games in a row, these eclipse a 30% target share. Like, I mean, at some point you just have to be like, okay, well, guess what? Really good players get targeted. That's what happens. Then I had somebody come back and be like, well, they were trailing the whole game. What does trailing have to do with the target share? You still have to go earn a target, whether you're leading, whether you're trailing, whether you're in a tied game. Like, it's not a check down to a running back, So, I mean, yeah, like Amon-Ra, you just got to get on board, I mean, if not, fine. You're already getting steamrolled if you're not on board. Like, you're just getting bulldozed. So, like, good luck to you.
Shout out DJ Chark. Did have a touchdown and a bunch of unrealized air yards. Still going to be more of a boomer bust guy than anything. Let's not get too carried away with this Lions offense. But 35 points is 35 points. Great day to be great in Detroit, other than the real life loss, of course. Dolphins 20, Patriots 7. Didn't get eyes on this one for the full time. It was kind of a boring game. I didn't see red zone cutting to it all that often, but we did get the Jalen Waddle 42-yard touchdown on the slant, split 2 defenders, gone to the end zone. The camera or the goalpost was blocking him, like doing his little penguin waddle celebration, but it was almost better because then they cut to like 4
fans.
just 4 drunk ass like white dudes just like waddling around. I was fucking dying out there. So that was a fun moment. And Tyreek, man, 8 catches, 94 yards on the 12 targets, just doing a lot of what he did in Kansas City last year. And I saw just some smarter football minds than even myself in the industry is talking about how the sort of fallacy like of the idea that Tyreek was only running like goes in Kansas City. Like, nah, he's been a lot more than that for a long time, and he really can just be a weapon underneath. And that's how Mike McDaniel used him in this one again with those 12 targets, 8 catches, 94 yards. So, Dwain, what do you think though moving forward about Waddle? Because obviously saved his day with that 42-yard touchdown catch. He looked fast as hell out there. Like, I didn't look like someone that we were kind of wondering about throughout this week if he was going to be 100%. But Tyreek with those 12 targets, Waddle with 5. This was a game where we did see the Dolphins, not exactly air the ball out a ton, but also not completely ignore their run game. Waddle, low-end wide receiver 2. I feel like he's maybe, talking about him versus Deontay and these other guys, Waddle's the one that maybe we just moved down a little bit.
I think you're still going to see it be mostly focused on these two players. It just so happened that today 39% of the targets went to Tyreek and 16% went to Waddle. My belief all along has been 50% between these two guys. I think there are going to be days where it swings to Waddle. I think there are going to be days where they're very close. Like they were used interchangeably today. 3.03 yards per route run for Tyreek Hill, 2.46 yards per route run for Jalen Waddle, 9.4 ADOT for Jalen Waddle, 9.5 ADOT for Tyreek Hill. It matches exactly what Mike McDaniels, which was cracking me up when he got to the stadium and he turned around. Did you see this? No. And he was hitting the button on his car to make sure it was locked. And then he was checking, you know how they're videoing the coaches as they're walking up. And then he's checking his pockets. Did I forget my keys in the car? And then I think he just realizes I'm on camera and he just turns and walks into the building. Yeah, I think they're going to be used interchangeably. So if somebody's really down on Waddle in your league and you can go scoop him, I would. I think Tyreek Hill obviously is like an elite player. We think Jalen Waddle profile as an elite player as a rookie, but you're going to give the nod to Hill. But would it surprise us if it's 26% target share to Tyreek Hill and 24% to Jalen Waddle? That's what I'm thinking. So I think they're still going to be very close. So I'm all in on Jalen Waddle.
With the backfield, Chase Edmonds. This is one of those performances, Dwayne, where I think if you just box score watch, you're not going to be that pleased because he did have 25 scoreless rushing yards, did catch 4 passes for 40 yards. I guess it's really looking closer at it, though, and realizing that even though Mike McDaniel found a way to get, 7 different players rush attempts at one point or another, getting creative out there. Love to see that. In terms of running back usage, it really was just Chase Edmonds. And even in terms of rushing work, Raheem Mostert was a distant second. This is kind of what we were hoping for, Dwayne. Chase Edmonds getting that Austin Eckler-esque role in Miami. That's basically what we saw here.
That's exactly what he has. And an offense that could be absolutely explosive. Remember, he did deal with a growing injury early in the week. He then went to limited, then he went to full practice, and he was removed. So that could still be a little bit what's lingering here. But perfect way to explain it, Ian. And this is where I love the utilization report is for guys like this. Because if you just look at the box score, like you said, 12 attempts, 25 yards, you're like, oh my God, meh. Right now, he did have the 4 targets. You would see that, which you would know is good, but 63% of the snaps, 57% route participation, right? Like we'd like that to be like 60, 65%, but he's still well over the 50% mark, 52% of the rushing attempts, 80% of the long down and distance, almost 70% of the short down and distance work. So he was not even giving away the heavy lifting carries to Raheem Mostert. He was keeping all of it. He was essentially a near every down back in this offense, 13% target share. So yeah, this is a guy that if you can buy on the cheap, I think you absolutely want to do it. We know he's got the receiving chops, explosive playmaker. Like this is about as good as of a utilization line as you could hope for with a guy like Chase Edmonds. We've never really seen him even be over a 30%, kind of guy. And to have 52% of the rushing attempts, I was excited. Like I knew the passing down work was going to come, but to see him get to 50% of the rushing attempts, I thought that was a huge thing for Chase Edmonds. Honestly, this is a very, very solid profile for a mid-range RB2 that we could be talking about as an RB1 as soon as next week.
And to not have the third running back involved is also just huge because we think we have these backfields figured out. Then there's a random freaking Rodney Smith that comes out of nowhere. He didn't even know who he was before the game started. Finally, if you hadn't heard us say it enough times already, Mike Gesicki can't do it. He's not even playing full time here. 42% snap rate, only had actually 1 target in this one. Can't do it. We'll let you guys know if that changes in the future, but for now, just can't do it.
40% route participation. That just equals cut.
Yeah, cut him. Cut him, don't think twice.
You can cut him right now.
Speaking of 3 RB backfields, the Patriots, they did it again, Dwayne. Every damn year, we get through the whole offseason, and guess what? James White did retire. J.J. Taylor did get cut. Kevin Harris did get cut. Ty Montgomery, Undertaker, he did not go down with the injury everyone thought he did in the preseason. He was active, and because of that, just the grossest utilization that we've gotten on the entire take it away, Dwayne. Tell the people how terrible this was. And if you're a Ramondre Stevenson truther, I'm sorry. Like I wouldn't have even wished this upon my worst enemies, like what you guys have to go through hearing this.
Yeah, it's I said on Twitter, it's a XXX rated RBBC. Like you just don't want any part of this. Like your mom's not going to let you watch this. Like your mom will not let you watch this. It's bad. You shouldn't be involved with it. Only bad things are going to happen to you if you deal with XXX, rated running back by committee situations. That's what you have. 39% of the snaps to Damian Harris, 36% to Ty Montgomery, 25% to Ramondre Stevenson.
We couldn't even get a 40%. That's when it's just,
and Bill Belichick's full of shit. They also still did have specific niche roles. 91% of the passing down work went to Ty Montgomery. The new and improved Ramondre Stevenson, lighter, quicker, been working on routes. 0%. 0%. 11% route participation. Like I think I had more route participation today, and I'm sitting at my desk in Texas. Like, so yeah, this is really bad for Ramondre. Essentially what happened is early down work split between Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson. So the rushing attempts, 43% to Harris, 38% to Ramondre. Short down and distance, though, 100% to Damian Harris, 0% to Ramondre. So Ramondre is getting zero sub package work right now. Not getting short down and distance, not getting long down distance. Now, they did not run the 2-minute offense. Maybe Ramondre actually owns the 2-minute offense, and we'll get to see that. But it's just a complete mess, man. And we're not – look, Ramondre is a good player. Like, he showed us that he's a good player. But you got 3 guys involved here. And the other thing is, like, if one of these guys go down, Ian, how confident are you really that they're not just going to bring another third guy in? Like, I bet they will. They're going to do it. They always do it. And Ty Montgomery, like, has been injured all this time and comes out and has this big role. So, like, Pierre Strong is probably going to be a nuisance, even if one of these other players go down. So I think the hoping for Ramondre taking over, like, you're going to need, like, multiple things to happen for you, even though multiple things already did happen that really should have unlocked Ramondre, for week 1, but it didn't.
This feels like LaVisca all over again.
Oh,
I know
God.
it's different positions, but this just feels like, all right, now we just need these 6 other guys to get hurt, and then maybe he'll get a role finally. So
if the trash man that works at the facility also sprains his MCL and they can't bring him out there.
Look,
God.
it's just 1 week, but Dwain, we read the reports and heard the reports about this new Patriots offense. There's a damn tweet this weekend saying that they're considering scrapping the new scheme and going back to last year. Like, part of the allure of this backfield was the fact that it was tied to the rating 6th ranked scoring offense. Like, that was the fact last year. The Patriots were putting up a lot of points, a lot of weeks. That's how Damian Harris had 15 touchdowns. If we take this usual muddled bullshit committee, but then we take away the actual, like, high scoring nature of this offense that we've usually seen with the committee, like, that's why we could live with it, because Tom freaking Brady's leading one top 10 offense after another. Like, what happened in 2020 when Cam was there? Were any of us thrilled to play really anybody in this offense? No, we really stayed away from it pretty much each and every week. And I'm not saying Mac Jones is going to be that bad, but it's not great that he suffers a back injury. The x-rays were negative. That's good. It's been bad, though. I mean, hell, that corner blitz that Mac just didn't see coming. Like, how much can we blame on Matt Patricia? It is kind of funny to blame everything on him, but certainly not the start the season we want to see from the offense. Was just 1 week. A lot of work to do. I'm not confident about playing anybody from this passing game at the moment. We did see Devontae Parker and Jacoby Myers really taking the big time lead there. But unfortunately, like, Hunter Henry now does have an increasingly involved Jonnu Smith, even though Hunter, I think, is going to be out there more times than not. Like, Dwayne, I just don't want any of these passing game guys right now because I'm not confident this passing game is going to be any good.
Yeah, Hunter Henry surprised me, 83% route participation. So that, like, actually did. I don't know if he can keep that up. Jonnu was out there 54%. So it's and I haven't gone to look at the personnel stuff, but obviously they were using some 12, and that's how they must have used a lot of 12. And that was getting Jonnu. That's probably what happened, because the third receiver is at 54% route participation. That's Nelson Aguilar. And then you had Jonnu at 54%. So they probably used 12 personnel and 11 personnel, like, as their main 2 for the game. And so Hunter Henry did not, leave the field, really. So he's a guy we want to keep an eye on. If he does get dropped in a league, like if you have Gesicki and somebody drops Hunter Henry, absolutely, I would pounce on Hunter Henry. This could change, but that 80% is really good. And then you mentioned the other 2. It's pretty much what you said. Parker was out there 100%. Didn't really get targeted this time, but any receiver that's out there for 100% of the routes is going to have a chance, especially Parker. We've seen him flash in the past, never been consistent or anything, but the main dude is still Jacoby. Jacoby is out there 94%, 21% of the target share, 34% of the air yards. He led the team. So he's really the only guy you can feel okay about. And even with him, you're really thinking of him like, okay, like I'll put Jacoby in my wide receiver 3 spot, right? In a PPR, like in the standard league, like I don't even want to do that.
Don't want to think about it. All right. Ravens 24, Jets 9. Lamar Jackson, not 1, not 2, but 3 beautiful touchdowns, all of them from the pocket. Can we put this freaking narrative to rest already? I feel like Lamar could throw for 50. He's already won an MVP, like, in just the amount of highlights that are out there. Like, at this point, like, I don't even think that people are racist. I just think they're stupid. I think they're ignorant at this point. If you're just going to try to say Lamar isn't this great passer, like to me, it's more of like an intelligence check at this point. But 2 to Devin Duvernay, 1 to Rashad Bateman. That was fantastic. Unfortunately, Dwain, we didn't see, I guess, the wide receivers as centralized in Baltimore as we were hoping for, because Lord knows there's not much depth there. So we just kind of figured Rashad Bateman would be the undisputed number one. And yeah, he did lead the way with 59 yards, and he had that gorgeous 55-yard touchdown catch. But when you look behind the numbers, look beyond the numbers a little bit here, Mark Andrews is really the only guy that we can really say had quote unquote elite kind of route numbers.
Yeah, for sure. It was bothersome, man. Like that Bateman was only at 71%, given how weak the wide receiver room is. Like, yeah, we like Devin Duvernay. I live in Texas. He came from, UT. Demarcus Robinson, though, really? I mean, Demarcus Robinson needs to be out there 51% of the routes. And, Isaiah Likely's out there 51% of the routes. It's like, come on, man. Like Rashad Bateman should be at 85% in this wide receiver room. Like that just kind of blows me away. And fine, you want to keep Duvernay out there for 60%, then freaking quit giving snaps to Demarcus Robinson. Like we've been there, we've done that. Baltimore, can we please move forward? Here's what I would say in Bateman. Like, look, he came through for you. Only a 53.8 PFF receiving grade, today. So he kind of struggled last year. He was a borderline guy for us, but at the end of the day, like his profile really suggested that within the next 2 years, from his rookie season, he should still post a top 24 finish based on all the metrics that we look at. And we just really assumed it would be this year. And I'm still going to lean into it happening this year, and that he's going to grow this route, share, but you're just going to have to be a little bit careful with him. Definitely don't want to cut him. Don't want to trade low on him or anything. In fact, I would trade for him if someone's real. And guess what? They're not going to be. All they're going to know is that he scored a touchdown. You're going to know all this other cool stuff, and you're going to be trying to like sell them on a trade. They're like, man, he scored a touchdown. Like, I'm keeping him. Like, I don't care about utilizations, like for dummies, so we're gonna have to wait a week, right? We have to wait a week till he has the same kind of utilization, doesn't score, then you can move in for Bateman, and hopefully in 3 or 4 weeks that changes for him. But yeah, Andrews, dude, freaking 94% routes per dropback. Like that is nuts for a tight end. Like tight ends, 80% we've told you is elite, 94% is like past the moon. You've shot around the moon, and now you're headed back and you slingshot like past Earth, like hopefully not like straight into the sun. But 25% target share, 28% of the air yards was just slightly under Bateman, who had 30%. So yeah, Mark Andrews, I know he came up a little bit small, for you guys in the box score with 10 points and 10.2 points in a PPR. But this is the kind of profile that's going to easily be 25 and 30 point games for you coming forward.
Yes or no? Can we stop talking about Isaiah Likely unless Mark Andrews gets injured?
Yeah, he's just a stash. I've talked about this with several people, and I like him. But his path to being on the field enough to give you fantasy points, it's just really tough. And this was with Nick Boyle out. That's their main blocking tight end. He did not play today. So if there was ever a game Isaiah Likely was going to go bananas, like it should have, or been on the field, even if he didn't go bananas, had his utilization really gone bananas? Like it was today, and it didn't happen. So I'm not saying you got to cut him, and if you're in a really deep league, but if you're in a shallow league, like, yeah, there's going to be better things on the wire. I wouldn't be hanging around waiting on Isaiah Likely. If Mark Andrews goes down, to your point, different story, but I think it's going to be really tough for him to be good enough to put in fantasy lineups.
Kenyon Drake leads the backfield. One of those weird situations. Shout out to Nick Bodiford. He's now on the Friday podcast with me when we go over injuries. He actually heard Rap Sheet's report about Kenyon Drake being the starter, so we were lucky enough to be able to tell you guys that on Friday to fully get us off Mike Davis. But Dwayne, even then, man, I see Kenyon Drake 58% snaps, 44% route participation. Didn't seem like they were exactly going out of their way to really feed him the ball. Even though J.K. Dobbins wasn't out there, he was trying to get out there, working out in warmups. Like, does seem like Dobbins his return is imminent, and Kenyon Drake, man, I think they're going to throw the ball if they don't have these running backs, and that was kind of our original assumption. Is Kenyon Drake someone that you want to spend any sort of waiver wire amount of money to get? Because for me, it's going to be a no dog.
No, because you're just gonna as soon as you spend it, you have no clue when Dobbins is going to be back. Like if you knew that you were going to get this for another 4 or 5 weeks, I'd be like, you might drop a little, like depending on your roster. Like what does your roster need? 59% of the snaps, 57% of the rushing attempts. But yeah, like with Dobbins potentially coming back and Kenyon Drake, like, man, he just hasn't looked good in a long time. Like that's the other thing. Like all these guys they suck, man. Like they're just not very good. So it was still a 3-way committee. Yeah, I'm passing unless there's just a situation where I can get him for like a min bid, and like I hate my RB2s. But then again, don't like go overboard.
Get this. So not a single player on the Chargers had more than 4 targets. 7 different New York Jets players had at least 6 targets in this game. That's what happens when Joe freaking Flacco drops back to throw the ball 62 times over the course of this one. Managed to get to 307 yards. Got a late touchdown to our guy, Tyler Conklin. Dwayne, as you all heard throughout the, summer, we joined, I think, 8 or so drafts by the end of it all. Unfortunately, we had, to make up some ground this week with Zach Ertz and mostly George Kittle out of the picture. I know Ertz came back and played. We had to replace George Kittle. And sadly, tight end premium, Tyler Conklin was the best choice. He did find his way into the end zone, so that felt good. Otherwise, though, Dwayne, good, not great news, I guess. I mean, Elijah Moore was out there full-time pretty much with Corey Davis, and we did see Garrett Wilson not be a complete relegated to number 4 wide receiver duties. With that said, Braxton Berrios, didn't exactly go away. Breece Hall,
and Jeff Smith got 12%. Like, you got to have Jeff Smith out there too. What? Yeah,
I don't know what we're supposed to do. Did we get DJ Montgomery reps? Is he still on the team? I mean,
they're working on it. They're working on it. Like,
but
Denzel Mims, he can't be out there. Like, anyway, yeah, it's a rotate. So 89% route participation for Elijah Moore. You already hit it. Corey Davis 68%, Garrett Wilson 56%, Braxton Berrios 47%, Jeff Smith 12%. So essentially, you've got wide receiver 1, Elijah Moore, like, and whatever kind of God sound you want to make for Elijah Moore, because I know if we're going to get one for Amon-Ra, we'll get something different for Elijah Moore. He is a badass. But the other guys are really all rotating, and so Davis is leading the way. But then Wilson is getting snaps. Berrios, they're all just kind of mixing in and out. Like, eventually, maybe one of them emerges. But for right now, you cannot trust any of those 3 guys. Any of those 3 guys in your lineup. Moore is really the only one you could be rolling with.
With that backfield, though, Michael Carter, Breece Hall, yes, good. It's a 2-back committee. It does seem like Michael Carter is still squarely in the lead, and for good reason. Michael Carter is really good at football, but also bad reason. Why did you draft Breece Hall in the 2nd round if you're not going to start him ahead of Michael Carter at some point? Still awfully early. We're going to start seeing these freaking target rates get insane again, Dwayne. And I'm not discounting Michael Carter as a receiver. I know he can do it, but my God, at this point, since week 1 of last year, targets per route run leaders, Nyheim Hines, 26%, Cordero Patterson, 26%, Alvin Kamara, 24%, Michael Carter, 23%, and there's Saquon at 23% as well. Maybe, what do you rate this utilization, Dwayne? You were talking about Chase Edmonds' utilization being pretty close to RB1. I mean, even kind of raw totals aside, like assuming and knowing that Michael Carter isn't going to get 9 full targets every single week, it's going to be tough to keep out of the top 24, top 25, man, if he keeps this up.
Yeah, I think he's going to be, he's low end RB2, high end RB3. His problem is the 45% route participation. Breece Hall had 44%. So they're splitting the passing down work. You did see the long down and distance go to Carter. They didn't use the 2-minute offense very much, but that went to Breece Hall. So they're kind of figuring out how to get both of them in there. But Carter was definitely ahead on the ground, like 61% of the rushing attempts versus 33% for Breece Hall. And then just overall snap share was 60% to Carter and 45% to Breece Hall. The problem is, we don't know, how much can Breece Hall chip away with that? Is it eventually just could it be a 50-50 by 3 weeks from now? Is it a 50-50 next week? Is it a 50-50 in 4 weeks? Or does it just stay this way? I think the problem is you're going to have to worry about that every week. And that's the real challenge. But man, both of them really good through the air. Both had 16% target shares today. Targets per route run since they weren't on the field as much. 29% for Michael Carter. That's insane. 30% for Breece Hall. Yards per route run, 1.43 for Michael Carter, 1.41 for Breece Hall. Those are really good numbers for a yards per route run for a running back. So both guys very involved. The problem is we just really need the Jets offense to be better. If the Jets offense could get rolling, we could probably find a way to use both of these guys. But yeah, I agree with you. For right now, low end RB2 for Carter, high end RB3. Breece Hall really just more of a flex play, if you're in danger somewhere else.
Players this week, pre-Sunday Night Football, that were getting targeted on at least 30% of their routes. Tyreek Hill is at 39%. That's wild. Devontae Adams, 35%. Brandon Cooks and Amon-Ra at 33%. We talked about Donovan People-Jones popping off. He was at 31%. Then we got Jefferson, Kupp, Diggs, and Breece Hall at 30%. But Dwayne, arguably the most surprising guy in this group, transitioning to the Commanders' 28-22 victory over the Jaguars. Antonio Gibson, 31% targets per route. The man, did you see those catches that he was making downfield, Dwayne? The guy looked like that he has like played wide receiver in college before, and they mentioned that on the broadcast. No fewer than about 30 times. But it was just good to see that from Gibson, man. He looked healthier than he had really in 2 years, which makes sense because we know he wasn't healthy for all of last season. Of course, it's not like we're still talking about Antonio Gibson here. God forbid we actually give the man a full featured role. J.D. McKissic was still out there plenty. Overall, it was Gibson, 64% snaps, and McKissic, 40%. But 14 carries for Gibson. He caught 7 of 8 targets, was able to rack up, made 130 total yards. Didn't find the end zone. But Dwayne, while Brian Robinson is out, we can at least treat Gibson kind of like the low-end RB2 he was last year, which is a nice step up from this time 3 weeks ago when it was like, who wants to draft Gibson? And when you do, we're just all going to point and laugh at you.
Yeah. Again, we talked about Gibson multiple times. And even, whenever you were kind of pushing him down lower, and I was like, well, he still has the profile, right? He still is an explosive playmaker. He's a pass catching back. Like if something, and this was, I think, even before the Brian Robinson stuff. So like if something happens, like he still has outs, and that's what he showed you today. Like those outs can still come through. And this is why we want explosive playmakers that can catch the ball, because they can come through in this way for you. Unfortunately for Antonio Gibson, 100% of the long down and distance and 100% of the 2-minute offense still went to Mr. J.D. McKissic, because that is his role. So what allowed Gibson to really uncork today, he had a 58% route participation, which again, like 65% is like that top level, 65% and above is like elite, but that's still really good when you're over the 50%. But Washington was actually just able to stay ahead, right? And they're down in distances. And because they weren't getting stuck in all those long down and distance situations that often, then Gibson was not having to come off of the field for as many of those snaps. That allowed him to be on the field, to your point, to accumulate a 21% target share today, which was really awesome to see. And to your point, it was not something where it was just swing passes. These were down the field, 3.1 ADOT on the day for Mr. Antonio Gibson.
Hell of a game from Mr. Carson Wentz as well. 313 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 picks. He started off well. He threw a couple bad picks. It looks like we were starting to get the same old, but he came back strong in the fourth quarter. 49-yard strike for a touchdown. Terry McLaurin also found Curtis Samuel earlier in the game, and rookie Jahan Dotson twice. I love how we had, the Jamal Williams or Jahan Dotson, 2 touchdowns for 2 of our favorite late round sleepers already here in week 1. So Carson Wentz, his first game, Dwayne, with 4 passing touchdowns since he originally injured his knee back in week 14 of 2017. So truly the best we have seen him look in quite some time. Just 1 week. I know it's probably not going to be a situation where Carson Wentz is someone we're talking about as anything other than a streamer. But for now, Dwayne, at a minimum, I think we can be more confident in someone other than Terry McLaurin putting forward a game. And my God, from the looks of this one, Terry McLaurin was freaking 5th on his own team in targets. So I don't think that's going to keep up week in and week out. It was awesome that even in a game where Terry only gets 4 targets, he managed to take one of them to the house. But Curtis Samuel and Jahan Dotson, did you see enough behind kind of the beyond the box score evidence here to trust these guys as actual like wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 types, as opposed to like he's pretty good at football, we'll draft him in round 17?
Yeah, absolutely. And these are guys that we talked about based on preseason. Sometimes preseason utilization helps us, right? And sometimes it doesn't always come through. We'll have examples of that later. But we really did see from the Commanders that they were pretty committed to the 11 personnel groupings, right, in the preseason, especially with Carson Wentz on the field. We saw that carry through to today. 94% route participation for Terry McLaurin, which was first on the team. 90% to Jahan Dotson, which was second on the team, and 83% to Curtis Samuel. He was over 75% in the preseason. He did lead the team with a 26% target share. He was also involved in the rushing game, 16%. He did have a fumble. I don't know if he had any carries after that, but this is a guy that we talked about. Very diverse skill set, explosive playmaker, the type of guy we want to be attacking in late round of drafts. He's my most rostered player, period, across all formats, just for those reasons. And so, yeah, looking at him, we know he's a good player. We know he's going to be on the field. I do think it's going to be ups and downs for all of these guys, right? Because now you've got three capable players. This is really good news, to your point, for Carson Wentz. For each of them, I don't know, like probably going to be 2 guys can go off each week. It's going to be tough for 3 of them to make it. It also probably means, even though Logan Thomas came out and played a 60% route participation coming off of that knee injury and meniscus, I think it's gonna be tough, right? How's he gonna really get involved with these three guys doing what they're doing? But yeah, I think all of these guys should be on rosters in every single. Well, I say every format. Like if you're playing like in an 8-team league, I see some of y'all's rosters, right? Some of you guys don't have room for Curtis Samuel, but most leagues, Curtis Samuel, yeah, should be on a roster.
8 catches, 55 yards, touchdown, 4 rushes, 17 yards. He lost a fumble as well. Not a perfect day, but bro, just 12 touches for him. He only had 10 touches last season in 5 games, 38 scoreless yards. So Curtis Samuel, well, last season was a wash. In 2020, I threw this out there one time. People got really mad at me. Curtis Samuel scored more PPR points than Cooper Kupp in the year 2020, Dwayne. And yeah, Cooper Kupp didn't have a very good quarterback then. I don't know that Curtis Samuel exactly did either. And that's, enough of me comping Curtis Samuel, Cooper Kupp.
Just remember this, folks. Like one of the easiest ways to get a value in every year's drafts, people just give up on injured players. They just give up on them. Now, you don't just want any. Curtis Samuel happens to be a talented player who had just gotten paid, but only played like 6% of the routes last year due to a growing injury. But guess what? People are like, I'm just done. I'm done.
Are you saying growing or groin?
Growing. Growing. Groin.
Groin. Growing. Whoa, bro, you say that. You've done that like 3 times now.
Yeah.
You caught me off guard every time.
So I say it a weird way, I guess.
Continue.
Can't pronounce it. Like it's like Montgomery.
I'm sorry. Continue.
No, it's just no. I mean, the main thing is like you want to buy talented players that everybody else is giving up on. Like you saw it with Saquon Barkley today. You saw it with Curtis Samuel. Like they're talented and they were hurt. So what? Like if they have a discount on them, then you want to buy it.
On the Jaguars side of things, good, not great day for the Travis Etienne fan club. I'd actually say a pretty terrible day. Not a good day, a terrible day for the Travis Etienne truthers, of which there are 2 on this pod. So first of all, early in the game, we could yell at Trevor Lawrence because Etienne was wide open for a touchdown. Trevor Lawrence just overthrew it, but we couldn't really hold on to that for long because then later Etienne was wide open and he dropped an easy short potential touchdown. Up and down day for Lawrence. Someone mentioned on my Twitter that Marvin Jones was open for a touchdown, but got missed. Zay Jones kind of had a chance for an end zone touchdown, went off his hands, but also wasn't a great pass. Throughout it all, Lawrence got pressured on 43.5% of his dropbacks. So not going to take a ton away from Lawrence here. I am happy that we at least saw like Christian Kirk, 6 catches, 117 yards. Like just for Lawrence to have 275 passing yards, man, it gives me more faith that he can just put up numbers even in games where the Jaguars, are falling behind and losing. But big story here, other than Christian Kirk's, aforementioned 117-yard game, is the James Robinson experience, man. Back, team high 11 carries, also caught a touchdown. He rushed for a touchdown and looked good enough, averaging 6 yards per carry. I mean, my goodness, when our Achilles basically our entire sample group is wherever the hell Cam Akers gave us last Thursday night, and Marlon Mack can't even stay on a practice squad at this point. It was just good to see James Robinson, really be the rare Achilles guy that not only has the quick recovery time, but comes back and looks okay enough while doing it. So, Dwayne, with James Robinson now being a factor, which is awesome, as much as again, we want everyone to be healthy and be out there. I'd love for Travis Etienne to just be AFC DeAndre Swift like we want him to be, and for, James Robinson to do his thing as well. But how feasible now that we do see James Robinson being the lead back of this 2-back committee, do we think Travis Etienne is as a weekly starter?
I would still prefer to have Travis Etienne on my roster over James Robinson. Robinson did look good today. He handled 60% of the rushing attempts, but he was not out there for the long down and distance work. He was not out there for the 2-minute offense work. He was not out there for the short down and distance work. All of that went to Travis Etienne. So it's pretty much like what we thought it was going to be, except Robinson getting a little bit more of the rushing work than what we anticipated. Like I had a 3rd-round grade on Etienne as being a player that probably wouldn't even see 50% of the rushing attempts. Like it would be slightly less than that, and it would be James Robinson leading the way. But it was, Etienne only at 30% of the rushing attempts. Like I thought it'd be more like 40, 45. So that's really the difference. But all the passing game work and stuff, it just didn't come through. And Etienne had a tough game. Like he dropped some balls. They just, he and Lawrence just weren't like completely in sync. You talked about there was an opportunity. There was definitely a sheesh in there for Travis Etienne as well. So it's a day that just really could have gone differently. The utilization actually likes Travis Etienne. This is a guy that when I look at it, I can say, hey, look, to your point, I wouldn't grade him as an RB1 right now, which we weren't anyway. I think it's a low end RB2. Even if you want to call him a high end RB3 for right now, that's fine. So with ETN, like you're getting the main part of the role you want. Let's just see what happens with this rushing work. Now, if Robinson obviously starts to eat into some of the passing down work, like that would be super problematic, for Travis Etienne. But right now, he's still hanging on to that, and I think that's going to provide value for Travis Etienne, especially in PPR. It's a bigger blow today to Etienne in a standard league than what it is in a PPR or in a half PPR.
Tie alert: Texans 20, Colts 20. Just like kissing your sister.
Playing
Absolutely
for the tie.
Disgusting.
Playing for the tie.
Bro, that was the biggest chicken shit move ever. Are you freaking kidding me?
Come on, Lovey.
4th and 3 from midfield. You're coaching the Texans, man, and you just play for the tie like that. I don't get it. I mean, hey, we saw Lovey go back to Illinois. I guess he didn't learn how to win, there. But that was just
Lovey's definitely not a YOLO guy.
What is he, man? Is he just a liar? Like, why tell us? Why? No, I'm getting the Damian Pierce thing. Is he just a liar, man? Like, why tell us this shit? Like, if he's just tell us Rex Burkhead's a starter, then the amount of reports that came out over the last week just cementing it. Can we just stop looking at these team depth charts, Dwayne? Because that's what happened, right? We all freaked out over an intern updating a team depth chart. Lovie Smith is not the one going to HoustonTexans.com, rearranging the depth chart and putting Damian Pierce ahead of Rex Burkhead. What is it? I don't think it was Damian Pierce as a starter. Is it a feature back? Did he get the first snap? Okay. Rex Burkhead dominated every single part of the game. And I'm just at a loss for words about it, Dwayne. So if you got some, I'd love to hear why, how, because, you rode me down a little bit. You hit me over the head a few times with a hammer. Finally, I was like, you know what? Yeah, it's Damian Pierce. Like, why am I worried about Rex Burkhead? But here we are after week 1. Rex Burkhead had 14 carries. Pierce had 11. Rex Burkhead had 8 targets. Pierce had 1. Rex Burkhead played 71% of the snaps, and Damian Pierce had 29. If we flip those, if Damian Pierce had all those, we would be freaking out.
Be going nuts.
We'd be ranking this dude as like a top 15 guy, but because it's Rex Burkhead, I'm just angry, Dwayne. So what are your thoughts here?
I'm just angry too, man. Like it is what it is. Like the coaching staff said he was the starter for Damian Pierce, right? And they mentioned that Burkhead would be involved in passing downs. The preseason utilization backed all that up too. Damian Pierce was a starter. Rex Burkhead was out there, on the passing downs. Rex Burkhead stayed in the game after they pulled Pierce off. Pierce got to rest in one of the games where they didn't want to get him hurt. So look, sometimes these things happen, but at the end of the day, I would make the same decision with the same data that we had, right? Now, the thing with Burkhead, he freaking can't handle this workload for long. Like, there's no way this 32-year-old dude's going to be able to handle this. So this could honestly, and we didn't get a lot of Damian Pierce because he ended up getting, you and I, when we were drafting, I didn't, on other teams that I drafted either, because he got steamed so high to where I just backed off. But it could end up working to his advantage because Burkhead's a guy that's been pretty much hurt every single year anyway. And if he tries to hold up to this utilization, there's no way, man. He is not holding up to this. And that'll be an open door for Damian Pierce, to have all of it. He'll be because Marlon Mack's not a passing down guy, and they actually cut him back off the practice squad again. So yeah, it's a situation where we'll have to wait and see, but you cannot, Damian Pierce. And this is a game where they led, man. They were leading this game, and that should have been the Damian Pierce game script, right? The thing we warned against was, hey, the Texans are not good. They could be trailing a lot, and that's not a back that you really want to have on the field. You don't really want an early down back that's on a losing offense, starting in your fantasy team. But today they were leading, and you still only got a 29% snap share out of Damian Pierce, 12% routes per dropback, non-existent in the passing game right now. You already kind of mentioned the splits with the actual carries, but 41% of the rushing attempts to Damian Pierce, 52% to Rex Burkhead, 100% of the long down and distance, 100% of the 2-minute offense, all to Rex Burkhead. Even the short down and distance, the thing Damian Pierce is supposed to do, nope, not doing it. 60% to Burkhead, 40% to Damian Pierce. So Damian Pierce is definitely, he's not the starter. Like, he's the backup. These numbers just say you're a backup. That's all he is right now. So we'll have to wait and see. With what you guys probably spent on Damian Pierce, with how out of hand he got in some of these leagues, you're just going to have to hold on to him. And Rex Burkhead, man, for the weeks he can hold up and actually be healthy, to your point, if his name wasn't Rex Burkhead, like if I just put my thumb over my screen right now and I'm just looking at this utilization, I'm telling you this is a low end RB1. But because it is Rex Burkhead, but that's still, he's probably an RB2 as long as they let him do this. Now, how much can we trust it is the question, Ian. Like, do they just change it next week? I don't know the answer. I can't believe they gave him this much in week 1, so I don't know what your thoughts are.
The other problem is that, freaking rare game where we see the Texans not only lead, man, like it wasn't like they were up 7, they were up 20-3 going into the fourth quarter in this one. Like it was like, what the hell are you waiting for? Indianapolis type of situation going on here. So not only that though, but Pierce wasn't good out there. It wasn't like he was like a Pollard Zeke game where Zeke's averaging 3 yards per carry and Pollard's at like 9. Like Pierce and Burkhead couldn't get anything going because this is still the Texans offense. And that was the other point we tried to make pretty clear. The Texans had 77 rushing yards, but had 87 rushing yards after contact. That's how freaking miserable it was for both of these guys out there. So there's only so much Dameon Pierce can do behind this offensive line and this offense that scored 20 points here. And let's face it, like 2 touchdowns to OJ Howard. I'm probably going to take the under on that for OJ throughout the rest of the season. Shout out. That was awesome. You know, some guy that after he got cut from the Bills, Dwayne, like I just wouldn't have been surprised if we barely heard from OJ again after that. So for him to come out and get those 2 week 1 touchdowns, fantastic news. But cannot feel good at all about Dameon Pierce at this point. And like we have to rank, how could we as professionals, Dwayne, rank Dameon Pierce ahead of Rex Burkhead next week?
Yeah, I think the smart move is you rank Dameon Pierce ahead of Rex Burkhead in your rest of the season rankings. And then that gives you an out with the fantasy masses when they come at you with venom. And then you rank Rex Burkhead ahead for the weekly rankings. In all seriousness, like that's just what you have to do, right? It's not about, trying to massage it, for you folks listening. We're just kidding. Like we're having fun just like you guys are. But I think going into next week, like I'm not going to be super confident. I won't be Are you going to be confident enough? No, though I'm not. I will not be confident enough in these numbers to make Rex Burkhead an RB2. I'll call him a high-end RB3 just because, dude, it's just 1 week. They can pull the rug out from under you on this crap. Like, and the last thing you want to do is be holding on to the bag out here with you're the guy that said Rex Burkhead was RB18 for the week. Like,
we're gonna rank Burkhead like RB28 on Tuesday, and then by like Sunday he's gonna be like RB37. We're just gonna keep losing faith in it the further we get away from this game.
Yes, you're right.
I'm excited to get some more samples in it. But Brandon Cooks did have a nice game despite catching that. I didn't exactly see if it was a full-on shadow matchup, but I was worried about Cooks catching a lot of Stephon Gilmore out there. 7 catches, 82 yards on an elite 12 targets. He was one of those guys over the 30% targets per route run. Benefited from a 42-yard flea flicker, but hey, it was a cool play designed for the number 1 receiver. And honestly, if he had a better ball, could have been a much bigger touchdown. But on the Colts, Frank Reich doesn't want to overload Jonathan Taylor, doesn't want him to lead the league in carries, so he gives him 35 touches in week 1 against the Houston Texans. So gotta love when those storylines just really come to fruition. So Jonathan Taylor's still very much an absolute monster. And that was kind of the whole, like, I just got tired of the Taylor McCaffrey debate. Like, you're going to be freaking thrilled with either of these guys on your team. I hate just putting either one down. So we know he's great. And hey, Nyheim Hines, 6 catches, 50 yards in this one. Good to see. I'm going to take the under on Matt Ryan throwing the ball 50 times more weeks than not. But at least, for some of those best ball rosters might have gotten a usable week out of Hines there. The big story, though, Dwayne, Matt Ryan, good, not great. Beyond the box score, Ashton Dulin had a touchdown, hit him in the hands and then fall. Alec Pierce had a touchdown, hit him in the hands and then fall. So Matt Ryan could have had the better counting numbers. But come on, man. Your organization was calling you Peyton Manning asking you just tied the Texans in week 1. Like, that's disappointing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just the Michael Pittman show in the passing game here. 98% of the routes, 28% target share, 35% of the team air yards. Paris Campbell out there for 82% of the routes, so he was next. Then Alec Pierce at 66%, and the aforementioned Ashton Dulin at 27%. Got to get Michael Strachan some snaps, 7%. I don't even know if I said his name right. And sorry guys. On the tight end stuff, like I mentioned earlier, sometimes utilization stuff can point us in the right direction. Some for preseason, sometimes it doesn't. We don't always know. We're doing the best we can, reading the tea leaves, between all these different data points that we have. Mo Alley Cox was only in a route 36%, Ian. 36%. Like you can just cut Mo Alley Cox. You don't need to keep him on your fantasy team anymore. Colin Granson was out there for 54%. So you can move along. Nyheim Hines, was involved. What's interesting is he's not handling all the 2-minute offense or all the long down and distance work. It's really more of like what we talked about with the Lions. Both of these guys are handling, both roles besides Naheem Hines, not really getting carries, 8%, 86% to Taylor. But if you look at the routes per dropback, 61% to Jonathan Taylor. That's really good. Naheem Hines at 68%. Long down and distance, 55 to 45. 2-minute offense, 47% to Taylor, 53% to Naheem Hines. So it's not a situation where Hines is just taking over certain game scripts. And that's good for Taylor, because when that happens, if all of a sudden the Colts are trailing a lot, then that pulls Jonathan Taylor off the field and it's just all Naheem Hines. But if they're going to be in this kind of situation where both guys are handling those, that is really, really good for Jonathan Taylor drafters. That really insulates him and protects him from bad game scripts. So JT looking really, really good after this week 1 utilization. This is a good data point for him.
Every year we speak about the late round tight end class, and then Njoku pulls this. And then Brevin Jordan is playing behind not playing behind OJ Howard, but OJ Howard gets the 2 touchdowns. Farrell Brown. My God. Farrell Brown's also involved.
You can cut Brevin Jordan too. 58% routes per drop back. The only guy we didn't mention a minute ago, keep Evan Ingram. He was almost at 80%. Keep David Njoku, almost 80%. So those 2 guys are coming through. We didn't talk about it earlier. Well, we haven't hit the Giants yet, so we'll hit them in a minute. But yeah, on the Colts, you can cut Mo Alley Cox. You can just move along. Brevin Jordan, you can also cut bait.
Sad day. When I saw those Colin Granson numbers, I was just like, really?
I know, man. That was out of nowhere too. Like, yeah.
They paid Mo Alley Cox too. Like, I thought we were finally getting there late, but alas.
I was looking like did an injury happen? I couldn't find anything on it. So if something did happen, like, someone can hit us on Twitter. I can dig more into the injuries tomorrow. Like on some of these guys, when I first see it, I'll just do a quick search. But if I don't see something, I don't like go scouring the whole internet for it.
But Mo Alley Cox, like next year, man, gets a few things right. We could be talking about something. All right, we got to pay a few bills before we get to the 4:00 games. PFF now has an app. Get access to industry-leading fantasy football advice. PFF's exclusive betting dashboards, the latest premium football analysis, all in the palm of your hand. The app is free to download and use until the 2022 season starts. Check out the PFF app. Truly a great day to be great. Shout out DraftKings. The NFL's opening week was action-packed, and it's just getting started. Get ready for week 2 of touchdowns, big plays, and even bigger wins with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. This week, new customers can bet just $5 on any football game and get $200 in free bets instantly. Want more action? Everyone can experience the thrill of DraftKings early win promotion. It's simple. This Sunday, bet on any NFL team to win, and if your team leads by 10 at any point during the game, you get paid instantly, even if your team loses. Download DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code PFF to get $200 in free bets instantly when you place a $5 bet on any football game. That's code PFF only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See description for details. Man, that's a quicker way of doing it. Maybe read all those numbers all the time. Yeah, hell yeah, DraftKings. Good stuff. Our newest partner is revolutionizing the world of sports betting and fan engagement by making sports fandom profitable. That company is Symbol, the stock market for sports. Symbol was a PFF sponsor last year, and they're back for this football season. Symbol lets you trade pro and college teams like stocks and even earn cash dividend payouts when your teams win. Symbol took the thrill of sports betting and combined it with the profitability of the stock market to give you a platform where fortune favors a fan. Download the Symbol mobile app for iOS by searching SIMBULL in the App Store and use code IAN to receive a free team stock value up to $150 upon signing up. The PFF team is even getting in the Symbol market themselves this season. Create a free account, enter code IAN to get a free stock value up to $150 and compete against the PFF Forecast podcast this season on Symbol. New York Football Giants took down the Titans 21-20. The Saquon Barkley game, Dwayne. We didn't have to wait. It's here. It's done. Saquon Barkley, he's back. Let's go, man. This is a big win for us. Let's go. Saquon season.
Either you have Saquon on your team and you're winning your league, or you don't, you're losing. Like, just hang it up. No, dude. But second round pick, and you got 83% of the snaps. And we've talked about this, right? We've talked about he would probably challenge Najee Harris for the most snaps and potential for the most touches. The only question was if the explosiveness was going to return, and oh my God, was the explosiveness back? I'm telling you guys right now, Saquon Barkley might be the RB1 overall this season. Like, I know JT's the guy and CMC's right there, but like Barkley is absolutely in the conversation with the top 3. This guy catapulted Austin Eckler today. He catapulted everybody else. Like, he's over Derrick Henry. Like, if I were drafting a team right now today with what we saw, now that we've seen it, I would very easily draft Saquon Barkley in the top 3 picks of a fantasy football draft right now. So 62% of the rushing attempts, 74% routes per dropback. Remember, 65% is great. 75% is freaking elite, man. 40% target share. 40%. Like, this guy's the whole offense. Long down distance, doesn't matter. He's out there. 2-minute offense, he did give some of those to Matt Breida. It was 60% for Barkley, 40% to Matt Breida. But look, guys, 83% snaps, you have to pick some kind of spot to let the guy rest a little bit. And that's as good a place as any to get a little dude like Breida on the field, let him do a little bit of magic, give Saquon a breather. Man, yards after contact, Ian, 6.83. Explosive rush rate, these are carries of 10-plus yards or more, 22%. 1 in 5 carries today for Saquon went for 10 yards or more. Stuff, 0%. And something people have hounded Saquon about for years, of being a guy that wouldn't just follow his gaps.
Yeah.
Always wanted to bounce things outside. Point of attack changing today, 0% of the time. Like, he went where the run was supposed to go and he just pounded it. And if you guys saw the long run that I posted on Twitter, like you saw, like Saquon just saw it. It was a really well blocked play, number one, but Saquon saw it. He just followed the blocks, and then he let his athleticism really come into play once he got into the open field, beat the angle on a linebacker. It might have been a safety. I can't remember. And I mean, he nearly got to take that one the whole way. You did have a safety at the end that had a good angle on him. But man, if you have Saquon Barkley, you have a top 3 running back in fantasy football for the rest of the season.
That 68-yard run was his longest since December 29th, 2019. First 50-yard run since then. I absolutely love it. And he looked impressive as hell out there, just echoing everything you said. 119 rushing yards after contact, weeks 1 through 4. 1 through 4 last season, even 2 good games, only had 136 rushing yards after contact total. He was unstoppable out there, Dwain. The rest of the offense couldn't do anything. Lord knows Daniel Jones wasn't taking, any of the pressure off of Saquon in this one. Dwain, it was weird. The Titans secondary wasn't worried about, David Sills and Richie James Jr. out there, running these routes, because Kadarius Toney is sitting there on the freaking bench, as great as Saquon was. What the hell was this, man? Wan'Dale Robinson. Okay, if it would have been Wan'Dale, Sterling Shepard, and Kenny Golladay, I wouldn't have liked it. But a part of me understood that was a possibility for Tony. We knew someone was going to be the odd man out. I did not know that Richie James and David Sills. I barely even know who David Sills was before this, Dwain. I think I was slightly aware. I'm not sure if I could have told you he was a Giants receiver. I might have been was he a supporting actor or something like that? Wouldn't have been positive. But Kadarius Toney, man, 12% snaps. And the worst part was they gave him a reverse, and then they gave him a trick play to throw the ball, and he made probably 4 dudes miss in his only 2 touches. He looked freaking fantastic. He looks healthy. I don't think it was an injury related thing.
I don't either.
We cannot start him until foreseeable. Don't cut him, because my God, it's still Kadarius Toney. But
yeah, you can't cut him, because if he gets on the field, you're gonna hate yourself for cutting him, because he could be a league winner, and you saw it again today. Just like you said, it was very limited, but when you saw him, you're like, what the hell? What is this guy doing? What is he doing that coaches do not like him? I have no clue what it is. You've been in locker rooms, Ian. You played in college. I don't know what he's doing, but he is pissing people off. Look, like you mentioned, so he was out there for 12% of the snaps, 10% of the routes. And again, he's the second best player on this team, on offense. He is the second best Giant on the team. And he can't get out there because we don't know why, but you can't cut him because he's an electric player. Maybe he can work his way up the depth chart. And, what I saw from the rest of this receiving core, man, it could be so easy for him just to be the dominant wide receiver 1. If he can just stay healthy, get out of the doghouse. We did see a 30% target share today to Richie James Jr. Remember Richie James on the Monday night game?
When the entire 49ers wide receiver room had COVID. Yeah. That was unreal.
Went bananas. 30% target share today for Richie James. And James is a guy that has flash in the past. I have to give that to him. So, but man, it's tough to get behind it. Fine, if you're in a really deep league, you want to put an absolute min bid on a guy like Richie James Jr. I think it's fine. He has flashed enough in the past, but Kenny Golladay, these guys were all rotating. 71% routes to Galladay, 65% to Shepard, 71% to Richie James Jr., David Sills, private investigator, 52%. Wandell Robinson got hurt, right? So that's why he was at the 13%. I believe it was the first quarter when he got knocked out. But mostly, I just want to stay away from all this receiving core. I'm just going to leave. I'm going to leave Kadarius Toney stashed.
David fucking Sills played over Kadarius Toney. Like that's I did not think that could be our new low in this point, but here we are. So wow.
Oh, Bellinger, Daniel Bellinger, also false alarm preseason. Only out there 29% of the routes. A Tanner Hudson had 52%, and then a Chris Myrick. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Myrick.
Good question. Caught a touchdown though.
3%. So a three-way rotation on the Giants tight ends as well. You can cut Daniel Bellinger if you were in a really deep league and you had stashed him.
Quick, I have just from us talking about all these misses, I feel like the preseason tight end usage should be taken more so grain of salt in the future compared to other positions. Is that fair?
Well, we've seen it in the past. Like sometimes we've seen it work, right? And then there's other years where it doesn't. It's really a case-by-case basis. But, I mean, we're basically – the problem this year was we had such a tier of blah where we're just like, we don't like any of these guys. And it's like, well, at least these guys, we think they may have. And to be fair, we were clear about it. Like this, all we can do is go based on the information we have. But yeah, no, I think you got to watch it. Like it did work for some of the guys today and then others it didn't. So it is what it is.
Another late round tight end that is dead in the water. Austin Hooper, 62% snaps, number 2 on his own team behind Jeff Swaim. Hooper was the lead target guy, but this is another 3 tight end committee, just like the Titans have largely used throughout Mike Vrabel's entire time there. Unfortunately, Dwayne, the wide receiver room is pretty freaking messed up as well. Robert Woods, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, Kyle Phillips, yes, Treylon Burks, but also got to get Cody Hollister involved, man. Got to get him some run out there on the field as well. There's Derrick Henry. There's Dontrell Hilliard catching 2 touchdowns as a nice handcuff to Derrick Henry, not someone that we can actually trust on a weekly basis. But at this point, other than Derrick Henry, man, I don't know who you can start here and not completely hate yourself at this moment. And that goes for Robert Woods and Treylon Burks too. Just for now, I was never really that convinced that Robert Woods was going to come in here and just immediately be this 120 plus target guy, or if he was, he was going to be able to be overly efficient with it. And to see him in this one, man, just 2 targets in a game where Kyle freaking Phillips is getting targeted this much. No disrespect to Kyle Phillips. I'm just saying, come on, what are we doing here at Robert Woods at this point?
Yeah, you just gotta wait. Like he's a guy. We just basically told people to fade him. So I mean, it is what it is. But it is week 1. He's a 30-year-old player. He's coming off of a knee injury, which were part of the reasons we didn't like him on a run-heavy offense. So all those things kind of came to fruition, even though you actually got, today, looking at Tannehill, he actually had 39 passing plays. Now that's including penalties. So 39 dropbacks, not too bad for Tennessee. Like this is a team that will be happy to just drop back and throw the ball 25 times. So you actually had a game script where it worked out at the end with the Giants coming back that they needed to throw the ball. And it still just wasn't enough for Robert Woods. 77% route participation. Really for wide receivers, we want to see 85%. Then Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, 64%. Kyle Phillips, 64%. He did come through, to your point, with a 30% target share. But remember, folks, he's mostly playing a lot out of the slot. Don't get crazy with Kyle Phillips. He's not really out there in the base personnel stuff. He's not probably not going to happen. And on an offense where when they're leading, it's going to be really hard to get anything out of Kyle Phillips. Remember, we've seen this for a long time with this team. Adam Humphries, remember, he could never really get going from the slot, for this team. So before that, it was got Tywan Taylor or somebody like that we hoped could get going, and they haven't done it. Even though their coordinators have changed, they've kind of stuck with a similar scheme, and they just don't use a lot of 11 personnel. Treylon Burks, 36% route participation is terrible. The bright spot for Treylon, 38% targets per route run. So when he was out there, he was actually getting targeted. Also led the team, despite that low route participation, led the team in air yards with 33%, at a 17% target share. So he's kind of in the same boat as Kadarius Toney, right? He's flashing, he's showing a little bit, but not on the field enough, in the doghouse still to some extent with the coaching staff. So you're going to have to wait.
Yeah, he got loose deep, and the whole crowd and Vrabel were furious at the no call. And I was too, Dwayne, in my living room. I had the dogs barking too. We weren't too big of fans of that either. But Minnesota Vikings 23, Green Bay Packers 7. Oh my gosh, the biggest sheesh of the day. Aaron Rodgers, first play of the season, a tumultuous offseason, some might say, for Aaron Rodgers. Dwayne, maybe they could even pronounce the word correctly. But with Aaron Rodgers, first snap of the year, Christian Watson, the guy they take first in the second round. But, the first wide receiver they take to really replace Devontae Adams gets wide open deep. Rodgers throws one of the most catchable deep balls I've ever seen. I mean, this thing, to take a quote out of PFF PR specialist Dave Safaro, this was a pearl, Dwayne. This was a pearl thrown from Aaron Rodgers to Christian Watson, and the man dropped it. And that really just set the kind of mood for the rest of the game. Packers managed to find the end zone once with A.J. Dillon around the goal line, but no single player had even 50 receiving yards. Rodgers had a bad pick there to Harrison Smith, just trying to, throw a jump ball up to Randall Cobb. Took 4 sacks. Obviously, they were playing without their offensive tackles. It was a game where I don't think I was expecting the best performance out of the Packers in the world. And we knew that this was going to be a lesser version of the offense. But, man, 7 points. This could be not the new reality in Green Bay. You only have to go back last year to find like a far worse performance from them before they were able to obviously snap out of things rather quickly. But at a minimum, man, these pass catchers don't look overly ready. And in this backfield, man, as someone that has Aaron Jones on quite a few squads, what are we doing with him and Dillon? Because now it's just like, why should these guys even be ranked far apart? Dare I say, Dwayne, is the utilization scary enough to say A.J. Dillon is the new RB1 in Green Bay? I know he's not, but this is your cue.
Well, 61% of the snaps to Aaron Jones, 51% to A.J. Dillon. Obviously, if you add those two numbers together, they equal more than 100%. So they did get them on the field together for about 10% of the plays today. 65% route participation for Aaron Jones, 37% for A.J. Dillon. Rushing attempts, though, 56% to A.J. Dillon, 28% to Aaron Jones. So essentially what we have here is really kind of like a back in the day Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara situation. If you guys remember back, like in those years where Kamara would only get about 30% of the rushing attempts, but he was getting that elite route participation that we saw today from Aaron Jones, which Aaron Jones has not been able to get. He's been stuck at that 50 to 55%. So I think in the end, Ian, it kind of all evens out, right? Jones is giving up some carries to A.J. Dillon, but he's picking up, more of the receiving work. 83% of the 2-minute offense went today to Aaron Jones. They were not afraid to put A.J. Dillon out there in the long down and distance situations. Dillon actually, out-targeted him 18% versus 15%, but it wasn't necessarily just because of, the down and distance and things that were working out. It was just Dillon happened to be the guy they threw to, even though it might not have necessarily been a down where you expect the running back to normally get, a reception. So I think they are closer than what we thought. But I would still, if I had to, I would still rank Aaron Jones a little bit ahead. And as well in a PPR, I'm keeping Aaron Jones ahead. Half-point PPR, they're getting really close. Aaron Jones by a hair. If you're in a standard league, A.J. Dillon is ahead of Aaron Jones at this point moving forward for the rest of the season. I look at them, Aaron Jones right now, I think in PPR, Ian, like mid RB2 is probably what I would say. Again, we got to kind of give him some of his track record and know that he can move up or down from there in the next week. A.J. Dillon, obviously, over in a standard league is where you're getting the most excited about him. And I think that's where he's probably a low end to mid-range RB2 and standard. If I'm in a PPR, I'm still considering A.J. Dillon as more my high-end RB3, maybe low-end RB2, but he's going to have to come through with a touchdown, most likely in that situation, because I don't think he's necessarily going to get this kind of target share every week with the role that he has.
Again, just uneven game from the Packers, having the 4 sacks Rodgers took, the big miss to start the game. The Vikings were up 17-0 at halftime. I mean, Jones had 5 carries for 49 yards. Like, he had a sick 29-yard run where he was juke. Like, he looked healthy out there and everything. I wouldn't even say Dillon necessarily looked better throughout the entire game. So certainly think Jones is going to have more than 8 touches in future weeks, but definitely not maybe getting, I don't know. We're never going to get that damn Kamara role for Jones, Dwayne. That just pains me.
Well, this is the closest we've seen to it, but it's the old school Kamara role, right? When Kamara wouldn't get 30% of the rushing attempts. That's really what we saw today is actually that, not the Kamara role that we saw 2 years ago where he got more even than that. But real quick on the receivers and stuff, just none of them even got to 70% route participation. It was a complete rotation. I think the Packers are basically looking for who's going to step up. Who's going to step up and be someone that maybe they can trust in the starting lineup? If we had to pick a leader today, it was Christian Watson. He led all of those guys at 67%. Same thing in the tight end room as well. Only 44% route participation today for Robert Tonyan. You had Josiah DeGuara out there. You had Tyler Davis out there. You got Mercedes Lewis out there. Like, it's a complete rotation across all these players. We also did see backups late in the game, right? You had 12% of the snaps went to Jordan Love when they just got Aaron Rodgers off the field. So that's also impacting some of these other utilization numbers.
Obviously, Alan Lazard, Dwayne's favorite, was out with the ankle injury, and we could see the Tunyon numbers go up, similar to Logan Thomas, once he's not in his first game coming off the injury. With that said, as we've talked about through a lot of the summer issues with, the Denver and Chicago offenses coming from the Matt LaFleur coaching tree, they have been willing to rotate Robert Tunyon plenty. Even last season before his injury, he was much more of a 50-60% snap guy than you would love. And I know routes over snaps for sure. I should just get vaulted whenever I do that, on this pod. But either way, if you're 60% snaps, it's going to be hard to be too much out there, and targets as well. On the Vikings side, holy hell, Justin Jefferson. Cooper Kupp comes out on Thursday night, does his usual 100 plus, 10 catches and a touchdown. It's like, oh, I wonder if JJ is going to have a tough time topping that. He did not. If anything, he got 184 yards and 2 touchdowns on 9 catches, Dwayne. I feel like he could have doubled that if they threw him the ball.
He had most of that at halftime. He had almost all of that at halftime. He had over 150 at half.
It was so dominant. And the fact that I will say this as someone that's mocked the idea of the Cooper Kupp role, I've done that because it's out of respect for Justin Jefferson. He can line up one-on-one and dominate just fine. But Dwayne, we did see instances of freaking Preston Smith being lined up on Justin Jefferson in zone. I get it. They're not going man-to-man with the pass rusher, but that's the sort of stuff. And I'm sure you're going to, if you haven't already done it, I'll be very curious to see what Jefferson's, numbers with a cornerback in primary coverage were this year, in week 1 compared to last year, because if there is anything about the Cooper Kupp role, that's it. It's Sean McVay's ability to get Cooper Kupp continuously matched up on freaking safeties and linebackers. Have you done any research on that? Because that's my initial thinking from watching the game. The touchdown, the first touchdown, they did it easily, just motioned him across. No one guarded him. 2 of the big crosses, there was no one around him. It just seemed like, as amazing as Justin Jefferson is, and we know it, and my God, he was awesome out there. This was easy, Dwayne. And that's how it felt with Cooper Kupp a lot of times last year. It was like, how can, by far, one of the best players, if not the best player on the field, be this damn wide open time after time? That's what we saw today. And obviously, all you Justin Jeffersoners that picked him in the top 3 are feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah, I don't have the primary coverage against those defenders yet, but 36% in the slot. So it wasn't like all of a sudden we saw him all the time in the slot. But to your point, it's really not necessarily about playing from the slot. It's about creating the matchups in the way that you set up your alignments, your motions, all these different things, and then the combination of routes that you put together based on what coverage that you're facing. There's a lot that goes into this. Coaches are actually usually folks really freaking smart. I know a lot of times everybody sitting on their couch, including us, thinks we know all these things. There's so much going into setting these plays up, and getting the right looks that you want and these right combinations. And so, we'll see what Kevin O'Connell can do. But there's nothing else I really need to say about freaking Justin Jefferson other than he's awesome out there for 100% of the routes. Adam Thielen out there for 100% of the routes, right? Only got a 12% target share because when you got Justin Jefferson getting a 38%, well, there's just not a lot left. 12% to KJ Osborne. He was out there 85%, which tells you guys a lot of 11 personnel, which was something that we really expected from the offense.
Irv Smith ease back into things coming off the thumb. I get annoyed, Dwayne, a little bit when they ease guys back in like this, and he wasn't even listed as questionable at the end of the day.
Right.
He was taken off it. So it is what it is. I'm very happy that our official stance was Gerald Everett over Irv Smith, as the tight end streamer. But I fully understand, if you guys are also out there with Irv. So we'll definitely, continue
24%, route participation.
Any injury, man, thumb, ACL, just the first game off it. If it's at all possible for you to get another option, just a good rule of thumb to probably look elsewhere. So no, we're not giving, I would expect Irv Smith, his numbers next week to look far better, but let's try to find another option just for the near term. If you have to cut him, it's probably okay at this point. I think there's enough guys probably in similar situations where you're not going to be completely killing yourself at the end of the day over it. Dalvin Cook continuing to do Dalvin Cook things and just get featured. I know Madison's snaps were up a little bit, but that was more so just game script. They still found a way to get
not really.
Really?
Almost 80% snaps for Dalvin.
Well, no, I'm saying Madison getting 8 carries was just at the end of Vikings being up by how much?
Oh yeah, but if I look at the end of the day, Madison was only 23% of the snaps.
So we're both not worried about Madison.
No,
Okay, cool.
No, we're not mad. We're not like 70. This is like elite RB1 from Dalvin Cook. Like this is better than any utilization line we saw from Dalvin Cook all last year. 77% snaps, 79% routes per dropback. That's freaking fantastic, man. 68% of the rushing. I felt like the dude there. It's fantastic, man. 68% of the rushing attempts, 60% the short down and distance, 80% of the long down distance, 89% of the 2-minute offense. Like, dude did not give up anything. Dalvin Cook is going to have an absolute smash week at some point in the near future. In fact, like I would rank him as RB4 right now going forward. I would have JT 1, Saquon 2, CMC 3, and then I would have Dalvin Cook number 4 right now.
I love the Saquon over CMC. That's just an easy way how to get pitchforks. In your mentions from the very same people that were probably cursing you for having like CMC.
Yeah, how can you have CMC? Week. Yeah.
Exactly. It's a cycle, Dwayne.
Get Saquon, folks. Don't think you can't overpay. Like you can't. You want to catch the person if you can find the person in your league that thinks, oh man, like Saquon had this big week, and you give them this offer that they're like, yeah, I'm fleecing this person. Like I'm just have Saquon. If you're in the league where Saquon went in the 3rd round, right? That's where it's going to happen. This is not going to work if you're in the league where the dude took Saquon at pick 9. Like he's not doing that. He made his stand on Saquon. He was right. You were wrong. And now he's going to try to dominate you. But the dude that got Saquon or the gal that got Saquon in round 3 and they're sitting there and there's a reason they let them fall to round 3 and they think, oh, well, yeah, I'm going to sell this person before they get hurt again. Like, yeah, absolutely go get Saquon Barkley, even if he had a big week.
Go find that guy or girl and make it happen. Final stat from this one. That person. There we go. I think that's the right term. Final note. Just how good was Justin Jefferson over the last 2 seasons? Every single wide receiver that has run at least 30 routes in a game. The most efficient performance in yards per route run was Jamar Chase in that bonkers game against the Chiefs last year, 6.05 yards per route run. And number 2, Justin Jefferson, the LSU teammate, this week 1 against the Packers, 5.58 yards per route run. That's pretty good, Dwayne. That's pretty good when you can have Justin Jefferson out there averaging the same amount of yards per route as Jonathan Taylor was doing last year when you're actually handing him the football. Chiefs took down the Cardinals quite easily, 44-21. Patrick Mahomes with the y'all must have forgot game. 5 touchdowns, 30 for 39, 360 yards. It was basically like Tyreek Who out there, and I know exactly who Tyreek is. So just a matter of how good freaking Mahomes is. 8 catches, 121 yards for a touchdown for Travis Kelce. Juju Smith-Schuster had 6 catches for 79 yards. Clyde Edwards-Helaire caught 2 layup touchdowns. Mecole caught a touchdown. Almost had a freaking house call, too. Like the one mistake Mahomes made was missing Mecole on a deep ball that could have been good from about 70 out. And how even Jody Fortson had a touchdown. So, Dwayne, looking beyond the numbers a little bit, these wide receivers, we haven't known exactly what was going to happen other than MVS and Juju being the top 2. And we saw that come to fruition once again. Unfortunately, Sky Moore is a distant 5th on the depth chart right now. With that said, Justin Watson did suffer a chest injury. So hopefully he's a little bit more in the rotation moving forward. And hopefully Justin Watson is okay, of course.
Yeah, and we even had at the end of the game, right? Chad Henne was in, Mahomes was out. So some of these numbers are going to be a little bit impacted by that. So MVS, we expected to be on the field, 80%. He probably would have been more like around 85%. Juju, 80%. Also probably would have been more around 85%. Those are the 2 main guys. Then Mecole was rotating in 61%, 20% to Justin Watson. You mentioned that he got hurt, and 16% to Sky Moore. So right now it's kind of like what we thought, Ian. We thought that it would probably be MVS and Juju out of the gate, and there would be a rotation that probably is just this evolving battle, right, between Hardman, Watson, and Sky Moore for that 3rd spot. Kind of a similar thing happening, at the tight end spot. Didn't end up mattering, right? And we talked about this in the preseason. We're like, oh, who cares if Travis Kelce gets 75% routes? Like, yep, 9 targets, 8 receptions, 121 yards, and a touchdown. Doesn't really matter. But he was out there 75% of the routes, but he might have been closer to an 80 as well if we didn't have the injury. And remember, 80% is what we want to be at. But Nathan Yonke did call out that this was a tough preseason for Kelce as far as his, route participation was. And Nathan actually went back and showed like every year, like basically how Kelce's preseason route participation has correlated to his end season. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. But right now it looks right. 75% is where he was at today. But again, it didn't really matter. That 91 or that 90.1 PFF receiving grade for Kelce who just looks dominant, man. He's just too good. 23% target share, 31% of the air yards. He led the team, 3.90 yards per route run. Good week one for Travis Kelce.
I was using the Padme like Anakin meme to show Clyde Edwards-Helaire's day because, you look at Clyde and you say, hey, guy caught 2 touchdowns. He started, and Padme's like, oh, he must have led the backfield on carries and targets, right? He must have led the backfield on carries and targets, right? No, he didn't, everyone. Jerick McKinnon, 39% snaps. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 36%. Pacheco, 24%. When we can't get a single guy over 40%, I know, game script. But man, what? He was going to be at 50%, like 55%, best case. This is a 3-back committee. Ronald Jones was not active, but Isaiah Pacheco, even before getting some of the, late game carries and stuff, he was involved occasionally. Jerick McKinnon's still involved, especially more so than Clyde as a pure route runner. That's problematic. This isn't good, Dwayne. Honestly, it reminds me of early season last year with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, where he was actually scoring touchdowns and basically people were disappointed in his performance, even though he was kind of outperforming what we expected from it. Like, again, it's one of these things where Clyde, he had 3 catches like in the second quarter, man. It's still not something that's like a full part of their offense. If there is a sell high, like, I'm not sure if people are going to buy it because I think we're getting smarter as a community right now, but this is a fraudulent 2-touchdown game right here.
Sell high. Absolutely sell high right now on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And even looking at the first half, like, it was still a big rotation. Yes, at the end, did Pacheco get more work as the closer? But guess what, folks? That's probably his role. If Clyde Edwards-Helaire can't be the closer at the end of the game, guess what closers do? They score fantasy points. Guess what? Like, 2-minute offense, not Clyde's. Long down and distance work, not Clyde's. That work's all going to Jerick McKinnon. So it's exactly where we thought it was going to be. The passing down work is to Jerick McKinnon. We got Clyde Edwards-Helaire really as the early down grinder. And now you got Isaiah Pacheco is anytime the Chiefs are in a blowout, when maybe you could scoop some more points from Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's not going to get them. Isaiah Pacheco is going to take them. And guess what? If Isaiah Pacheco gets hurt, there's Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones is going to be part of it. So if you can move Clyde Edwards-Helaire, if you watch the game, those were basically blown coverages on both plays. Well, one was a shovel pass. It was a good play design to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He walks into the end zone. That's fine. You're part of a good offense. You play with Patrick Mahomes. You got to worry about these other weapons like Travis Kelce. That's a benefit, right? And so that's a good thing. But the other passing touchdown, he was just sitting there wide open again. So I'm not buying it. I would absolutely sell Clyde Edwards-Helaire right now. It's just too big of a committee. And this is his 3rd year. We've seen this. The Chiefs have told us Clyde Edwards-Helaire is not going to be an every down back. It ain't happening.
If he had been running like, a Texas route or something, that'd be one thing, Dwayne, but we're just getting those layups. So that's a little bit tougher to feel good about. Arizona Cardinals now, it's 21 points. Kyler Murray, worked his way back there in garbage time to get to the 20-point fantasy mark, and we thank you for that, Kyler. But offense looked out of sync, and why wouldn't they, man, just with all the injuries going on, Rondale Moore being out, no DeAndre Hopkins, Greg freaking Dortch is out there running freaking a route and over 90% of the dropbacks for crying out loud. So did get a nice little saving touchdown from Marquise Brown, but just 4 catches, 43 yards in the score. I mean, I know CD Lamb managers would be killing for the numbers like that, but a little bit of a disappointment for Brown in this one, only seeing the 6 targets. It reminds me of last season early on when even before Hopkins got hurt, people weren't exactly thrilled about firing him up every single week because we were seeing Kyler just really like from his top receiver to his 6th receiver. There wasn't that as big of a disparity as we saw, in 2020 and just in different offenses around the league. So Dwayne, overall thoughts on Marquise Brown, and are you buying the Greg Dortch hype? Because Lord knows Cliff isn't going to put Andy Isabella out there. So if Rondale is going to miss more time, maybe this Greg Dortch guy has another, week in him. I will probably not be, because it sure seems like when Ertz is back, when Rondale's back, Dortch should probably be the 4 guy at best more weeks than not here.
Yeah, he's going to lose his role. I mean, you can min bid him if you're in a 14 teamer that starts 3 flex players, like Ian. We're in some of those. Greg Dortch sounds really freaking good.
Yep.
On a team like that. But otherwise, no, you're not. If in most leagues that, for folks that are probably listening to this, you're not going to really mess with Greg Dortch. As soon as you get him on your roster and think you're going to use him, like Rondale Moore is going to come back. This is a positive to me, for Rondale Moore, seeing a guy like Dortch get used this way. Also just not going to sweat it with Marquise Brown. Like, look, these things happen. I mean, if there was one player that the Chiefs had to try to take away today, who would it have been? It was Marquise Brown. I had Marquise Brown in my top 12 for the week, obviously with no Hopkins, no Rondell Moore, and iffy Zach Ertz. Like there was a chance for this real funnel and target share. But defenses, they know that too, and they try to take these things away, and sometimes they're successful doing that. I mean, there's defenses that will do that to Justin Jefferson at some point this year. There's defenses that will do that, to Devontae Adams at some point this year. We just saw it. So the chip landed on Marquise Brown today. I still feel fine about him. Led the team in air yards, 42%. So Marquise Brown still a guy, especially over these next few weeks, before we have DeAndre Hopkins back. I think you're going to get more good than bad with him.
Yeah, the top three names that pop in the unrealized air yards leaderboard were Brandon Cooks, Kyle Pitts, and Hollywood Brown. So big game should be ahead. Shout out James Conner, another touchdown, now 20 touchdowns in 17 games with the Cardinals. And Benjamin was out there a little bit more than we saw for stretches last year, but man, to see James Conner get 71% snaps in a game where, the Cardinals were getting freaking blown out of the water going to the fourth quarter. I think once again, Dwayne, the Chase Edmonds role, a lot of that seems to be going James Conner, at least in the overall touches. Did you see the same stuff in terms of the back end utilization?
Yep. 72% of the snaps to James Conner, 67% of the routes. Again, 65% is great. 53% of the rushing attempts. And that's really where Benjamin was being used late in the game. They were doing the little dump downs, and they were, letting him run the ball against, some of these, boxes that didn't want them to, pass. And so short down and distance, 100% to James Conner, and long down and distance, 75% still to James Conner. They did not, for whatever reason, use the 2-minute offense, which is kind of weird, Cliff, to be honest, kind of weird. Like in a game where you're losing by that much, they never really went into a high tempo offense. So yeah, not that worried about but he did get 34% of the snaps. He should probably be on rosters in most leagues. I think he clearly is the 2. Darrell Williams doesn't need to be on any of these rosters. So 34% snaps, 26% route participation, 21% of the rushing plays to Mr. Benjamin. Zach Ertz, he was kind of battling, got out there for 63% of the routes. Some of that's probably due to the injury, though, man. I would expect him to be more like around 75, 80% once healthy.
Yeah, and there was a pregame report saying that he could be like on a snap count of sorts, so no surprise there. Final note before we get to Chargers Raiders here, just wild stat I found. All-time NFL leaders in career games with at least 300 passing yards and 5 passing touchdowns. Breeze all-time with 9, Brady with 8, Manning with 7, Marino with 6, and already Patrick Mahomes with 5. If this dude does this for 10 more years, man, like the record books are just going to look absolutely asinine. I don't know. Maybe he's not going to catch Brady's ring count, but just in terms of pure counting numbers, we're going to be in uncharted territories once, we get just this modern football, like actually progressed over the course of an entire career. But AFC West matchup. That's, the things I start saying when we're 2 hours deep here. Chargers 24, Raiders 19. I mentioned before, but yeah, Justin Herbert, great game for him. 279 yards, 3 touchdowns. But yes, not a single Chargers receiver had more than 4 targets in this one. Keenan Allen probably would have gotten there. Unfortunately, suffered a hamstring injury and already said there's a small chance he plays next week. Infamously last year told everyone to play him and then proceeded to re-aggravate his injury and not really help out when we were all hoping him to do so. But Keenan, hope you get better, man. Was disappointed to see, Joshua Palmer and Mike Williams not really do a whole lot in Keenan's absence. It was actually DeAndre Carter who scored a touchdown on an absolute seed from Herbert down the middle. Also got Gerald Everett having a grown man touchdown, man, just catching that back shoulder fade and pretty much just pushing his defender an extra 3 or 4 yards into the end zone. So, Dwayne, from a pure route standpoint, we did see DeAndre Carter, step into 3 wide receiver sets, but it did still seem to be pretty clearly Mike Williams and Joshua Palmer as the top 2 atop Herbert's pecking order.
Yeah, and we saw Jalen Guyton working a little bit, too, not a lot, but yeah, it's Mike Williams and Palmer. 91% route participation for Mike Williams. So look, I know he didn't come through, and he had a horrible day. His overall PFF grade was a 45.7. His receiving PFF grade was a 47.6. So just a rough day for Mike Williams overall, only a 13% target share. That's 4 targets. He had 2 receptions for 10 yards. So definitely for some of the folks that were spending, Mike, he got up, to 3rd round pick, towards the end of draft season. So that definitely wasn't what you were looking for, but he's out there. Like he's out there. So we'll see what happens in the coming weeks with him. Josh Palmer, that kind of worried me. 71% is all you can get to when Keenan Allen leaves the game. Like, this is a guy that, like, people were drafting in round 10 and 11 of drafts at the end. Like, this was going to be the dude. And maybe he still will. Like, you know, you and I talked about him. Like, last year, he filled in for both Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. And we always talked about what's the upside with Josh Palmer. Probably the third or fourth option in the offense. But if one of those two guys go down, he's truly can be a cuff to either one, then that's nice. And an offense that has Justin Herbert that's going to have to be in a lot of shootouts. It just didn't work out today. But I think we just got to be patient, right? I mean, overall, like, you're probably going to be looking at Josh Palmer being a wide receiver 4 next week in our ranks, with Keenan Allen most likely out. So we'll see what that looks like. Would have liked to have seen just a little bit more. Would hope he would have been like, because honestly, like a 71% route participation, I thought he would have been at that, like, with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams playing a full game. Like, so I would have thought he would have been at like 85%. So
And
a little worrisome.
And it's also like, I agree with you, wide receiver 4 probably. And okay, Keenan got hurt, and we're only saying wide receiver 4. Like, Higgins got hurt, and with Boyd, we're saying much more than that. So it's not ideal.
Yeah, and he could still surprise us. Like, there's things we liked about Josh Palmer, you know, but people did get kind of carried away. His overall talent profile said, it wasn't like, you know, were doing cartwheels around Josh Palmer and any of the breakout metrics that he was hitting. Basically, he was a young player that gets to play with Justin Herbert, and we knew that, you know, Keenan Allen was getting older. That was kind of the storyline around Josh Palmer. So we'll get to see. We're going to get to see for sure now. Let's see what happens next week.
And we also scream into an abyss for like 7 months every offseason. We end up talking ourselves into these sorts of guys each and every year. But Dwain, there was one other big note with the Chargers, and it was Austin Eckler not quite having Austin Eckler usage. 51% snap rate in this one, 14 carries. We knew that Kelly and that Sony Michel were going to cede off some usage, but certainly didn't really make up for it in the pass game. Are you worried here, or do you think it's just kind of a 1 week blip on the radar?
I mean, we don't want to overreact, but it's not good. Like, I mean, he was only out there for 40% of the routes. That's bad. Like, we need Austin Eckler out there. We need Austin Eckler out there 60 for what the price tag that was paid on Austin Eckler in fantasy drafts. You need him out there 60 to 65% of the routes. So this is very problematic. He did keep the short down and distance work. Remember last year, that's what he took over and allowed him to score all the touchdowns. So that's a positive. He had 86% of those snaps today, 14% to went to Sony Michel. So, I mean, if we're looking for like the silver lining today with Austin Eckler, it's not like he lost the short down and distance work, but we definitely want to see him more involved in the receiving game. Like the 47% of the rushing attempts, we can live with that as long as he's out there for 60% of the routes. So we'll see what happens. Targets per route run were still good, 21%. You know, he ended up with a 9% target share on the day. So don't panic. Still a good offense, still a really great quarterback, but not good. Not good to see Joshua Kelly and Sony Michel mixing in as much as they did.
Sure would be a lot cooler if it was higher. Excuse me. All right, Justin. Oh my gosh.
No, we're good. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the Raiders while Ian clears his throat over here. So I'll jump in, Ian. I don't know where you were going for sure. I've lost the show sheet at this point, but we'll talk about the halfbacks for a second. Look, everybody loved to hate Josh Jacobs. Played 60% of the snaps today, 77% of the rushing attempts, but did not have any of the short down and distance work. That went to Brandon Bolden. Didn't have any of the long down and distance work. That also went to Brandon Bolden at 67%. Amir Abdullah, strangely, just barely involved here. This was all about Brandon Bolden. Amir Abdullah is another guy I quickly searched just to see if I saw anything about an injury. I didn't. Now, again, I'll look deeper tomorrow. But Amir Abdullah right now, as we sit here, like he was a guy that we thought might give you PPR value as a pass catcher. Not so sure. Might be a guy that we can just go ahead and release. And then Josh Jacobs, like not going to have, doesn't look like he's going to have any of the sub package work. I don't even know how you get to 60% of the snaps and you don't get to play any of the short down and distance or long down and distance work. I don't even know how that works. That's making me wonder, like, you know, but I was looking at the data. It's all right. Everything that I pulled in.
It should happen by accident.
Yeah. It's gotta be just this random thing, but it's really hard to get to 60% when you don't get any of that other work, especially in a game like where the Raiders were trailing. You know, I mean, the Raiders trailed. I don't have the data in front of me, but probably most of the game. So.
By the way, apologies there. 1:45 a.m. here Eastern. I think my body's finally saying F you, Ian, and we're not sure what's going on. What I was trying to finish with was that Justin Herbert now has thrown for at least 300 yards and or accounted for 3 touchdowns and 26 of 33 career starts. This dude was freaking put on this planet to keep scoring fantasy points. But yes, not Pretty good usage, I think, overall for Jacobs, but I still think we're looking at New England Southwest. I mean, nothing about this kind of changed that. And honestly, I thought Ty Montgomery and Brandon Bolden scoring touchdowns within like 5 minutes of each other was pretty fitting in this one. So,
and no Zamir White did not see the field.
Yeah, special teams only for Zamir. So Devontae Adams did Devontae Adams things. I mean, top 5 wide receiver, especially, which we'll get to in a second with a certain someone's injury. I think the CeeDee Lamb case ahead of Devontae is going to age awfully bad. And I think it already has aged awfully bad, but you know what? We'll watch the film and get better. Devontae still very much looking very much elite. And Darren Waller still looking good too. Should have had a touchdown if Derek Carr put the ball in a better spot. Hunter Renfrow just kind of had a situation similar to Devontae Smith in Philly, just was the odd man out this week. I'm sure he'll have some better weeks, but certainly doesn't have the same ceiling here anymore with Devontae in town. So, Dwayne, anything else on this one?
No, man. Devontae said, I don't care that I'm playing with Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow. 44% target share today. Wow. 52% of the air yards. And what's funny is, like, Waller and Renfrow weren't bad. Waller was at 18% target share. And then you had Renfrow at 21%. So it's a very condensed offense. So don't like freak yourself out even about Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller. They're still gonna be okay. Everything's going to these 3 dudes. Like the next highest target share on the team, Brandon Bolden at 6%. And then you got a bunch of 3%ers. You got Josh Jacobs at 3%, Amir Abdullah at 3%, Mac Hollins at 3%. This offense is funneled through 3 players. So when that happens, there's going to be an opportunity still. Like, I mean, look, Devontae Adams had a 44% target share today, and the other 2 guys were basically at 20%. Like, that tells you how concentrated it is.
Was not the best game from Derek Carr, but we know he'll probably put some better ones forward. Was not the easiest matchup in the world against this reloaded Chargers defense, man. Having to deal with Bosa and Mac every day. Couldn't be me. Sucks for those quarterbacks, but they're making so many millions. I guess that's okay. Final one. You sure, Dwayne? You sure you want to do this, man?
Do we? Yeah, let's do it. I don't have all the data on this one. I'm just going to go with what I have, though, because I'm exhausted like you.
Just
whatever this was when I pulled it at the end is probably like maybe through the 3rd quarter.
Let's just go from the heart here. The Buccaneers 19-3. Oh man, I was telling Dwayne we got on here, like, I don't think the Cowboys offense made a single play this game. Like, yeah, Dalton Schultz had some layups. CD had 2 catches. Like, Zeke actually had a couple okay runs, but I don't think there was ever a play where you're just like, wow, what an effort from that offensive player there wearing that star on their helmet. I don't think that happened once the entire game. We knew it was going to be problematic with Tyron Smith out, but dude, like, Zeke averaged more yards per carry than Dak averaged yards per attempt. Like, Jason Garrett's stupid ass quote he said about like them needing to feed the ball to Zeke. Like, this Cowboys offense was so bad, they actually made Jason Garrett like look relatively smart to what he said and that. And I know Garrett's the Princeton guy. I've freaking heard that a million times, but you guys know what I'm talking about. This was atrocious. And now, yeah, Dak Prescott with the hand surgery is going to miss 6 to 8 weeks, putting Cooper Rush under center. This is absolute worst case, Dwayne. I can't think of a worst case scenario to happen to both the Dallas Cowboys fantasy assets and the Dallas Cowboys fans organization as a whole. I mean, hey, here's the question, man. We talked about this with DK Metcalf all offseason. When it goes from Russell Wilson to Geno Smith, DK Metcalf went from a top 10 wide receiver to a borderline wide receiver too. With Cooper Rush under center, is CeeDee Lamb all of a sudden like 20 wide receiver 21 or something? Because he very well might be. Obviously 11 targets in this one, only caught 2 of them. It looked like an offense that had only 1 wide receiver who the defense had to care about on any given play, because that's what this offense is. And they've known that, and they still entered the season with that idea. And it's just sad, Dwayne. So, well, wherever you want to go with this, there's a lot of
it's bad, man.
Depressing angles.
It's bad. Yeah, I mean, look, CD's going to continue to be the main guy, but to your point, without Dak, just like what you're dealing with, with Seattle, it's a definite hit, to CD Lamb. So we'll have to see with Cooper Rush. Can he remember the quarterback just has to be not terrible to help support, especially when you could have a funnel offense like this. So it just really depends on Cooper Rush, like, and where he ends up. We've seen him in spots be okay. Some against the Vikings last year, actually step up and have like that 300-yard game, made a couple of real money throws. One of them was actually to CeeDee Lamb, I believe. It might have been Cedric Wilson from the slot. There was a big play for a touchdown. So we'll have to see. But yeah, it's definitely not good. And honestly, like Dak looked terrible like before all this. Like Dak was
Horrendous.
just missing wide open throws. Like I don't know what was going on with him, if maybe the foot or whatever ankle was bothering him. No clue. So yeah, obviously it's bad. For the running backs, it's not good. You know, it's not good for anyone, man. This is all bad. You lose Dak Prescott, like it's just, and we'll see what happens with Connor McGovern. Like he got hurt too. So they lost another lineman after they've already lost Tyron Smith. This is a bad day for the Dallas Cowboys.
Dwayne, be honest. Did you know who Dennis Houston was going into this game?
I didn't. I was like, what the hell is happening?
I had no idea. This happens like every now
I knew
and
who he
then.
was. I knew he was on the roster, but just like seeing him out there with the starting lineup, I was just like, what is happening?
Like I think I've heard the name once or something, but never in my wildest dreams was I like, oh yeah, this is the guy in 3 wide receiver sets with Noah Brown and CeeDee Lamb. We knew Noah Brown was going to be there, like that had become apparent. But my God, Jalen Tolbert healthy scratch, and then to have it's okay. Nathan Yonke has the route data available for us. CeeDee Lamb 45 routes, Noah Brown 39, Dennis Houston 30, Simi Fehoko 14, Kapante Turpin just 1. Sad.
How about that one reception for Tony Pollard? That was freaking amazing. That
Zeke.
one catch for 4 yards, one target for Tony Pollard. What is happening? The whole offseason, we're going to get Tony Pollard involved because we have to, because we don't have any other weapons. Okay, agree. One target. One freaking target. Yeah, this game goes on everybody. Kellen Moore is also looking like an idiot.
Zeke 40 snaps, Pollard 38. Zeke looked good. Like that's hilarious. Like that's the one kind of part of this where it just doesn't. I know it doesn't matter. Still, he didn't put up good numbers, but like in the course of this, like Cowboy, usually that's the problem, man. Usually we're like, right. What the hell? Like
82.8 PFF rushing grade for Zeke tonight. Yeah,
looks spry. Obviously, it wasn't enough, and now it's just going to make life harder than ever without Dak there. So. Right now, what Zeke's going to be, bro, like a low-end RB2. Pollard's going to be a freaking RB4 probably. CeeDee Lamb's probably going to be a low-end wide receiver 2. Dalton Schultz becomes like a low-end tight end 1. That sound about right?
Yep. Dalton Schultz was out there 89% of the routes, so that's good. 29% target share for Dalton Schultz, so he had 6 targets. Well, I don't know where he ended. When I stopped, where my data pool stopped, he had 5 receptions on the night. I know he ended up with more than that. So yeah, I mean, he was the main guy after CeeDee Lamb.
Another much criticized running back who looked objectively good out there, Leonard Fournette, man, 127 yards on 21 carries. Put Micah Parsons in the dirt on a pass protection pickup. And Parsons was literally the only Cowboy doing anything good. And he did a lot of really good things because he's a freaking savage. And I'm no way trying to criticize that dude. But yeah, Fournette got him one time. That's football for you. Also chipped in a couple catches. Did have Rachaad White out there, really being the clear RB2. So that was good. I know Giovanni Bernard's been banged up a little bit, but at a minimum, we don't need to worry about, the Keyshawn Vaughn era rearing its ugly head up there. Tom Brady didn't have to do much there. Buccaneers obviously had their own O-line injuries they were worried about, particularly after Donovan Smith went down in the second quarter after Parsons got past them. But ultimately, Dwayne, the big story for me was Julio Jones, because you look at the routes at the end of the game. Mike Evans, 23 routes, Julio, 22, Russell Gage, 18, Brashad Perryman, 10, and Chris Godwin, 10. Unfortunately, Godwin came out. I think it was his hamstring, so it's unrelated to his ACL, but he hurt his hamstring, had to leave after halftime. That just sucks. We're not sure when he's going to be back. Based on this utilization, Dwayne, if we're going to get into next week and Godwin's out of the picture, Mike Evans, yeah, upside wide receiver 1 week-by-week basis. Man, it's going to be tough to keep Julio out of that top 36. He looked like Julio out there.
Julio's going to be a wide receiver 2 if Chris Godwin's out. Mike Evans is a wide receiver 1, period. Julio Jones is a wide receiver 2, period.
I like when I'm like kind of, I go like halfway in or something like that. I say wide receiver 3, and you're like, no, he's a wide receiver 2. That's how we get better. That's how we get better.
Well, yeah, we're always pushing each other back and forth, like on some of this stuff. Like the disappointing thing. Now, I know Russell Gage was battling injuries, but only 56% route participation. Again, this is preliminary on this particular game because I don't have the final data, but I feel pretty good about it. It didn't change a lot, I'm sure, right? But he probably didn't even get to, I know he didn't get to 70%. Maybe he got to 60% at the end of the day, but that was not good for Russell Gage. So, well, I would want to wait on Russell Gage. I would not release him out, and if you're playing in a shallow league, you can. Like, if you're playing an 8-teamer, go ahead. 10-teamer, maybe you will. If you're playing in a 12-teamer, with a deeper bench, like, I'm definitely going to hold on to Russell Gage one more week, because if Chris Godwin's out, right, they're going to run a lot of 3 wides, and I would expect once he's healthy that he's still one of the main guys, and we could end up being wrong. And look, Julio is also another player that, like, even tonight you saw it, like, multiple times. You're like, get up, Julio. He's just one of those players that you're like, come on, man, come on. So we'll see what happens with it. But yeah, I will have Julio Jones in my wide receiver 2s next week if we are without Chris Godwin.
Mike Evans
and Leonard Fournette, dude. Whoa, 91% of the routes where I got the cut, where my data cut off. 86% of the rushing attempts. Rashad White picked up a few at the end that probably aren't calculated into this. 100% of the short down and distance, 100% of the long down and distance, 100% of the 2-minute offense. Leonard Fournette is he's going to beast as long as he has a role like this in an offense like, Tampa Bay. Like, he's going to easily have games where he can score 2-3 touchdowns, on this kind of workload with the Bucs.
Shout out to boss man Chris Collinsworth on the call, also battling through, a little bit of a sore throat. It sounded like out there, but doing what needs to be done. He's got to put bread on the table, Dwayne. But I think Chris brought up, like, Leonard Fournette. He said that when he saw Fournette at LSU, like, he's like, this is the best running back I've ever seen. This is not just some scrub, guys. Okay, yeah. Saquon more explosive and stuff, like, that's fine, but this idea that Leonard Fournette is just like a shitty running back, like, no, stop it. I'm tired of it. All right. Final note of this 2.5-hour podcast. We're back, Dwayne. We're back, baby. Cameron Brate, 22 routes run. Kate Otten, just 3. Kyle Rudolph was a healthy scratch. That's legit, Dwayne. I mean, a lot of these late round tight ends couldn't even sniff anything like this. And in a game where, Tom Brady, he only threw for 212 yards, only 27 pass attempts, clearly didn't have to pop their foot on the gas. If we could have that route participation for Brate in a week where Brady's actually putting up his usual numbers, like, I feel like this is what the utilization report is all about. Let's find the guy now. Let's get him on the team now, and then he'll blow up. And instead of having to rush the waiver wire, he's already sitting on the bench. Do you think that could be Cam Brate based on those numbers?
Yeah, the routes are good. Again, preliminary data, but 72% route participation, right? So he didn't get to the 80%, but if you're between 70 and 80, that still puts you in that low end tight end 1, high end tight end 2 conversation. So yeah, I think it's fine. The only problem with Brate is just, 11% targets per route run, only an 8% target share. But if the target tree gets thinned down, and we're dealing with something where we don't have Godwin, if Russell Gage turns out he's still battling some sort of injury and he's limited through practice, then at that point, I like it a little bit more. The only thing that scares me with Brate, and we've seen him over the last couple of years, all of a sudden he'll have these opportunities like this, because last year it was injuries to Gronk and things like that. And he just hasn't come through. So I just kind of wonder, like, is the guy washed? But at the end of the day, yes, like, the route participation, to your point, like, it's kind of this preemptive thing where he's out there enough, and all of a sudden, and look, there's a lot of tight ends that crashed and burned today. And Cameron Brate has something that a lot of them don't. He was at least on the damn field. So you got to give him that.
That is going to wrap up a long edition of the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast, but a good
week
edition.
Week 1, man.
Week 1.
That's the way it is, week 1. Lot to uncover.
We'll get some bye weeks here in the future. I don't know. Maybe we'll talk longer. I don't care, Dwayne. It's 2 a.m. for me. It could be 3 a.m. at this point. It is what it is. I got a bottle of some sheesh with my name on it. Gonna have a jolly old end of the night. And it's just a great day to be great. What do you got going on? Not a PFF anymore, Dwayne, but that's okay. We still love you. MB Fantasy Life, where some guy named Matthew Berry happens to do pretty good things for our industry and also yourself. Let other people know where they can find you these days and what you got coming up for week 2.
Yeah, so I am over at Fantasy Life, and you guys can check out all my work there for free. So tomorrow, though, I'll be writing the utilization report. Tuesday, the full utilization report with all of the charts and everything. Every single team will come out on PFF. Then there will be a skinnier version that will be over on Fantasy Life. And then after that, I will be doing my tiers and my rankings. They will come out on Wednesday, and then I will do my smashes and fades. They come out later in the week, but all the rankings are also up over at Fantasy Life. So full of content all week long. Be doing 2 podcasts over there. The KFC podcast with Marcus Grant, man. And then Matthew Berry will join us on Thursday. I think that's everything for this week. Like, I'm still making sure I got everything down and I have all my stuff. Like, here are all the pieces of content I got to get done this week. It's a lot, but I'm super stoked.
Finally, we get to do content based on football. It just happened like yesterday, today, whatever the hell you want to call it, versus, 7 months ago. So this is just truly a great day. It'd be great. Check out everything Dwain's got. And obviously, we'll still be here. PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. Dwain's back every Sunday night, breaking down every game we just saw. I'll be back on Tuesday morning with Nathan Yonke going through the top waivers of the week. Going to also have my quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, quick hitting solo pods for you guys Tuesday and Wednesday. Kevin Cole matchups Thursday. Nick Botifer doing some injuries on Friday. And yeah, gonna hopefully go win some more games in week 2. So for Dwain, I'm Ian. Thank you guys, as always, for tuning into the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. And until next time, take care, everybody.